그냥 할 거야. 내가 하고자 하는 거 그냥 할 거야. 내가 하고 싶으니까. 그냥 계속 할 거야.
Welcome to Nüfly session 13. I am one of your 4 hosts today. My name is Dan. You can follow me on Instagram or IG at DACFood.
Hey guys, what's up? This is Belinda. I'm the co-founder and editor-in-chief of Nüfly.
Hey y'all, name's Don at _UOP. I'm a visual designer here at Nüfly. I help Dan, Belinda, and Cas on anything they need help on. Big support system.
Our clutch driver.
Hey.
What's up, y'all? It's Cas. Happy Saturday. Hope everyone's doing okay today. My socials at Speak Proper, and yeah, looking forward to another good show.
For sure.
Just keep it simple.
Hell yeah. I like it. All right, guys, today we have a very special guest for you. Her name is Jenae. She is a photographer from Los Angeles. We're going to bring her in a short moment right now. And for today's session, it'll be, for the first hour, we're going to do a Q&A with Jenae. And then for the following hour, we're going to have her kind of go through her editing process. And then for our final hour, we're gonna let Jenae go, or she may hang around in the meantime. And I'll be retouching some photos while our team will proceed with a work session in the meantime. So without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and bring in Jenae right now. Hello, Jenae.
Yeah, how's it going, everybody?
Hey!
What's up?
It is good to see you all.
Too good, too good.
Nice to meet you all too.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing this, man, so much.
Oh yeah,
really appreciate
my
it.
pleasure. Thank you for having me here. I'm really stoked about your magazine. So first off, congratulations on getting it to this point. I know the work that it takes to get here, and all the hard work and dedication and uncounted hours. So kudos to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yo, I've never heard that from someone who like gets it. Thank you, Jenae.
Yeah, no, definitely get it.
For sure. Jenae, we before we brought you on, we were just introducing ourselves to our Twitch viewers right now. We are live right now, so thank you for being on with us. How about since this is
Quick
the
intro.
three of us, like our first time meeting you, we're gonna just do a quick introduction for everyone, just so we all kind of know who's who. How's that sound? Do you want to introduce yourself first, maybe?
Love it, Dan. Thank you.
Yeah.
My name is Jenae. I go by Jenae Lien artistically. It's just my middle name. And I've been living in Los Angeles for the past 13 years. I was born in Houston, Texas, and then I grew up overseas in Indonesia and also Japan. My mom is Taiwanese, and so I have kind of a dual culture that I bring to this world and trying to understand my place on this spinning planet. But I went to LMU, which is in LA, for college. And then after graduating from LMU, which I was in like theater arts and all that, I took 6 years to get out of the corporate world and into the photography world and into the art world. So making that jump in around 2014 was probably the best and scariest decision I've ever made. So here I am now. I'm part of the Leica family with my husband, who also made that same jump. He took time off of SpaceX to explore the realm of art. And so the both of us have kind of been each other's partner and supporter in this new path into really exploring our purpose on this planet and how to make the most of our time.
That gave me goosebumps.
I know. Wow. Very
Wow.
well said.
Impressive.
Amazing.
Those two are hella dope, like two of the dopest people you'll ever meet.
Oh,
Like,
thanks, B.
I love you guys so much.
I could go next. Very similar to your story, Jenae. I also came from a corporate background at first. I originally started any type of editing form from probably when I was a teenager. My uncle at the time who lived in our house was a video editor, and that gave me access to Photoshop, which I was on a lot of video game forum sites when I was growing up, and I saw on the forum sites that you can make custom signatures, graphics, and I started diving into tutorials and kind of started exploring like other design forum sites and started entering like graphic design competitions. And I had this whole idea of like, all right, I'm gonna enter college as a visual arts communication major, graphic design ultimately. But yeah, sophomore year, a lot of things changed. I was trying a lot of new things, like weed, for example, and I got really kind of I got really kind of nervous about my future at that point as an artist and making it. So I made a decision to switch it over to accounting, and so I graduated college with an accounting degree. And I went full force into accounting. I thought this was it. This is my calling. I'm gonna help small businesses with their taxes. And yeah, things kind of changed around 2014 when my housemate at this time, he's a music producer, and he started talking to me about like cover arts because he knew I had some background in Photoshop. And then so these cover arts I was making for him was taken off of my iPhone and me just adding text onto it. But I realized like the quality coming from iPhones wasn't what it didn't meet my standards. So at that time I was like, all right, I'm gonna explore like DSLRs. My first camera that I got was a Sony a6000, which I had no idea what was a crop sensor was at that time, and I couldn't figure out why there's so much noise in my photos. Later I found out it was because my ISO was always super high. But that eventually in the meantime, I personally am like, I lost for words. I really love clothes, specifically streetwear. I grew a very strong connection to the craftsmanship that I see in clothes. that made me come to appreciate more handmade kind of products. And it surprised me that a lot of my friends at that time did not really care about such clothes. It's kind of a boring topic for them. I found it a personal calling for myself to kind of combine my photography and graphic design into the realm of fashion to get more people kind of aware of alternative brands if they wanted to dive deeper and take their clothing a lot more seriously. But that led me to make a decision in 2017 to quit my job at PwC at that time. I was a tax preparer at that time, and I told myself at that time that if I wanted to try freelancing, I should be doing it now rather than at a later point in my life where I maybe have more responsibilities. And I was very lucky that my two Chinese parents were both very supportive of my decision, and they allowed me, I was gonna do it anyways, but they gave me their blessings ultimately to try out this freelancing career. And so my first couple of gigs coming into this was more in the music scene in San Francisco. I was doing a lot of like flyer designs, cover art designs, and some photo shoots were more of kind of like test shoots that I was working with local agencies just to kind of sharpen up my understandings. I realized that I suck with outdoor photography, and my specialty comes with studio photography actually. I was really bad at controlling lights when I was shooting outdoors, which made me kind of realize like, okay, maybe strobes are more of my forte. But as I dived deeper into the music industry in the meantime, that's where I met Belinda, and we kind of had a very similar work ethic. We were both kind of obsessive perfectionists, which has its pros and cons in the meantime too, but what we connected about was at least like meeting a standard and not kind of compromising with anything below that, which has tested us a lot for this magazine also, because we're now learning that decisions have to be made, and decisions have to be made quicker. So a lot of the times we have to compromise. A lot of the times we have to still communicate how we feel, but still be okay with sometimes things not going fully your way, and at the end of the day, just getting things done. So here we are now, still trying to figure it out, and yeah, that's kind of my journey for photography and graphic design.
That's dope. I think that graphics design and streetwear have so much in common. Actually, it's like a trait that I see a connection with in a lot of people that might not, it's not like an apparent connection, but it's that visual eye. And
Right.
so, way to also take that visual eye into that ear and produce music at the same time. That's really dope.
Yeah. During that time when I was studying photography, and studying just means like me looking at what makes me want to buy clothes, I was gravitating towards very curated lookbooks that these clothing companies were creating that I had it not been for graphic design would not have any idea of how that was created. So I definitely agree with you that graphic design and like photography itself goes very hand in hand. It's all about presentation at the end. Yeah. Dope. Don and Cas, you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Want to go first, Don, or let me go? I'll go first.
Go.
What's up, today? My name's Cas. My background for Nüfly is actually I'm one of the motion designers for video. So I work closely with Belinda on a lot of the projects that we do for video. My personal background is I come from. I went to school for visual effects, but I also was a tattoo artist. I've been a tattoo artist for like 10 years. So I do a lot of illustration. I do graphic design too. That was actually one of the first things that I did, starting when I was a kid, non-formal training. Eventually, I went to school for that, got the associates in graphic design as well. But yeah, in the last couple of years, I've been actually, I can really relate to working like in a corporate field. Since I moved out to San Francisco after school, I worked for Monster Products, and it was okay. It was like really corporate environment, And so and actually something I'm really trying to break out right now is actually starting my own smaller business, and kind of like what I mean, you guys are working towards your own dreams, so that's what I want to do too. And then just trying to figure that out, like in the process of finding a new gig. But I'm looking forward to the stream and seeing what we can all learn.
Hell yeah. That's so cool. It takes a lot of courage, honestly, to step into this art world. So way to go. Way to put that one foot in front of the other, and soon you won't even know how many steps you took. You'll be like, how did I even get here? But it's that every single day commitment and love for your passion.
Thanks.
Most definitely.
Big facts.
Don, you want to take over?
Hi, my name's Don. Hi, Jenae. I'm a visual designer here. I had a very similar story like Dan. I started playing games a lot back in high school, and then actually got onto these forums, and I started making signatures and like for in-game currency. So like I would just like try to make money through these forums by making like these little signatures or logos or whatever through PhotoBucket. I didn't even have Photoshop at the time. But yeah, like that kind of led me on to actually diving into streetwear in high school, and I like created my own brand, did the whole thing, but it didn't really pop off well because of like me not working and kind of just self-funding everything. But yeah, it kind of led me into this path of like just doing graphic design since like 2007. So like I've been doing it for a while now. I met B through mutual friends, and she actually came at me with like a 50 iteration logo that she wanted.
Oh right, Don made Belinda's logo.
It was
I love it. that rabbit jumping into the hole is so cool.
It was a long process for sure. There was a lot of file names and stuff.
It's so funny. I think that was like when I started shooting those selection videos, and I was getting so stressed about this one edit that took 2 months, and I started picking at my left eyebrow that whole time, because when I get stressed out, I just like pick at my left eyebrow, just start picking it, and then he started picking his left eyebrow out too. He's like, "Babe, what are you doing to me?" I just started to lose my eyebrow.
At least pick from the bottom, guys. It will look more nicer.
Yeah, right.
Just like razor, like a line straight through my eyebrow, like the way I was picking at it. It was bad.
Super gangster without any
without trying.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's how I met B, and kind of led into, she hit me up and she's like, "Hey, do you want to work on this project?" I was like hesitant at first because I had a lot going on, because I kind of dove into from restaurant industry to corporate, like the tech industry, and I began to start hating it because I'm not that type of person. Like I'm not gonna put on a face and act like I'm happy all the time. I'm more of like a close-knit, family-oriented like environment, like small team stuff. So like I quit Apple maybe a month and a half ago, and I kind of just, and then this coronavirus hit. So it's
Wild.
That's amazing. Like, yes, you made that jump out of it, but you gained so much insight from being at those corporate positions. And it's like now you know how to strategize and manage your own business.
Right. Like especially like scaling. I think Apple has like a lot to. There's a lot of traits or a lot of skills that I learned from Apple that kind of you can apply to everything else in life as well. It's not just because it's corporate or just because it's like a, this large entity. Like all these little, nuances that I learned can be applied to everyday life, and that's what I really enjoyed my experience there. But yeah, like this is our team, and I'm loving it.
That's so cool. I don't know if you know how I met Belinda, but it was actually through Instagram. 3-4 years ago, there was this active group called Girl Squad, because at the time Instagram was very much like boys club, And so I feel like the females were like, we need something to, feel badass about, some kind of exploring urbex kind of photography club. And so they met up in the Bay Area, which are you all living up there in the Bay Area right now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh. So we went up to the Bay Area, and Belinda was there, and it was a really wild trip because we got kicked out right away from the place we were at. It was this ranch, overgrown, had this cool tunnel with a train, abandoned. But she had green tea, and I just like connected with her right away. And I was like, oh, and probably some weed too.
Yeah, a box of mini joints and the green tea. The
like, she's my friend. and then she comes down to LA a lot. So like Belinda stayed over, and she's got a lot of friends here. And so every time she comes into town, we connect and create something, which is cool because it kind of happens spontaneously.
Yeah, we'll like get up at 5 a.m. to go for a 6 a.m. shoot downtown. I'm just like so groggy, but I'm like, all right, I'm in the car. Like, let's go.
Damn.
We've had some crazy adventures. Got kicked out a few times in multiple areas.
Different cities, multiple times. Yeah, you just gotta try, and then you just
like that one time we were trying to go on that roof of that hotel, and it was like what 50 stories or something. We guys were so fast.
We were all climbing. Like we were on the outside of the like scaffolding, climbing up this building in San Francisco. And then we were probably like maybe halfway up the building, and someone's like yelling at us to get down. We're like, oh no, oh we're caught.
You guys were hella close though. I was like, it took me so long to even get up there. I was like sweating balls in my hands. Like, this is kind of a lot more intense than I thought it
would. There's one time Belinda brought me to this abandoned warehouse, and like we were hopping over fences and stuff, and like I had like a medium format, my RZ67 on me.
Oh my god!
I was just like, yo, what are we doing, dude? And, like
lugging this thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ninjas at heart. Like what?
Oh man, do it for the location, right?
Yeah, that location was so dope. It was right by
that's how you got to train.
70.
Hey, that's true.
Pull-ups in so you can like.
Jenae, so Belinda also mentioned that, and you mentioned too that you have a partnership going on with Leica. So for people who do not, who aren't really familiar with Leica, could you maybe talk about like what attracts you to Leica so much? How has it been as your experience? Yeah, just tell us more on that.
Of course, yeah. So Leica is a brand, and it's originated in Germany. They make a bunch of products. They're very specific with their engineering. So they make a lot of like telescopes and binoculars and a bunch of stuff. And alongside of what they make a range of these extremely amazing cameras. So Leica camera is the subset of that company, Leica. And I became familiar with them when my dad's friend gave me a Leica M6, which is a film camera. And it's a rangefinder, which is kind of, it's a little different from a normal camera in that when you are trying to align two images together, you're actually seeing two different squares, and you try to match them so that they're the same square. So that's what a rangefinder is. Versus like a normal point and shoot where you twist the lens in order to find just like the range of clarity. So that M6 kind of started my journey into the Leica brand itself. Exploring Leica more, I started to understand the quality and the craftsmanship that they put behind every single one of their cameras. Sometimes a camera can take up to a year to make, which is baffling. So this Leica M6 really started it. It was a film camera, and then my husband, because he was working at SpaceX, which is good money at the time, we were able to start our collection into the Leica family of babies that we have now. So we started with like an eBay purchase, and it was a Leica MP240, which is a very basic digital version, and it looks like the M6. So the cool thing about Leica is a lot of their cameras look really old school, but their range of functionality is just incredible. So we just started building up our Leica collection and shooting more with Leica. My first camera actually that I was shooting with on the streets when I first met B was a Sony AR2, and it was
That's
like A7 II, or yeah, AR2. It was nice, and it had amazing colors.
That's
but
the same one I get on.
yeah, I loved it. I really loved it. But I knew I had to like make a commitment to a certain brand. My husband Nordy started shooting with Canon, and so we decided Canon's awesome. We're just gonna
nice,
go. Yeah, just gonna go with Leica and see what that brings forth. And we're lucky living in Los Angeles. There's a Leica store, and the Leica store in Los Angeles is actually like the only real affiliate to the Leica brand in Germany. Every other store in the US that is Leica is a franchise. So it's neat to have in LA like an actual store from Germany. And so they have a gallery aspect to it too, where they hold monthly galleries. And so we started going to these galleries on Thursdays and meeting the people who run the galleries, who run the store, started getting more connected and familiar. And then through shooting a lot too, and just like being dedicated to that brand, they then onboarded us as Leica ambassadors early last year.
Wow.
And so as a Leica ambassador, thank you.
Yeah.
It's like, it's cool because like the Leica family and the Leica community, because these cameras are so damn expensive, like a body can be $8,000 and then a lens is another $5,000. That's so much money that it actually adheres to those who can actually afford it. So a lot of times these Leica shooters are a lot older in age, tend to be Caucasian demographic, tend to, just like a certain particular type. And so I feel like the Leica family saw Matthew and I coming in, Nordy and I, his name is Matthew Nordy, we call him Nordy, saw him and I coming in as like kind of new blood into this entity at the same time when camera and photography was just booming. So Sony's coming out with a bunch of new cameras. They're awesome. Canon, Fujifilm made a really big comeback. So like all these cameras are now competing, and I feel like they needed something to kind of attach their brand to help push like for this new generation that we are. So I feel like we got really lucky in that wave, and then also we're just really, really dedicated to the brand too.
It's awesome.
That's really awesome. I first started with Sony more so because at that time, this is like I think 2017 actually, pretty recent. A lot of my friends were like, you need to go mirrorless. I had no idea anything about like DSLRs, but everyone's like, for our kind of lifestyle at the very least, how we're kind of like really on the go people. And there's like this new technology that provides these images while the shooting experience was really easy. And then I later realized like, oh, like it's like my crop looks really tight. I don't know why. I looked more into it. I discovered about cropped frames, which introduced me to full frames. And then when I started exploring full frames, I was in shopping mode at that time. And I follow a lot of YouTube channels that kind of like go over cameras, and like every now and then, here and there, I'd hear like a name drop Leica, and I was like, oh, okay, like, well, I've never heard anything about that. But I have a close friend, Red, who's in New York right now, who actually won a competition that Leica was hosting, and I started looking more into that and realized that like a lot, there's a cult following ultimately for Leica. People who know it love it, and then people who don't know about it, they have other options in the meantime. But the ones who care about it, it has always been like spoken upon very highly. People are always talking about like the image sharpness, the shooting experience was like super dope with it. And when I decided to look into the cameras, I then realized that there's a huge price point entry. Leica cameras, specifically even like the M6, which is a film camera, is so high in demand right now that it can run you easily around like 2K for like a 35 mil.
2 years ago, that wasn't the case. 2 years ago, no one cared about the M6. You can get one for $500.
That sounds insane right now. I would hop on that if I had the opportunity. But yeah, since then, personally for me, since I already had so many Canon glass, that I decided to stick with Canon. I'm currently doing my studio photography with the EOS R.
Nice.
Yeah, it's alright. It does its job. I like it. It's enough for me to get through. But personally, like if there were any new photographers wanting to start, I'd always direct them towards Sony nowadays. I think that's just one of the easier ones to start with.
Sony
And
fam.
yeah, it's
I need to get a fucking. But I hear they don't pay their brand ambassadors. Like you can do like a whole year of it, and you're paying out of pocket for a lot of stuff too. I don't know.
Interesting. I think they got tiers definitely for Sony brand ambassadors. Like if you're at their top tier, they will pay for your vacation to the Fiji Islands, and all expenses included. And yeah, so there's definitely tiers to the marketing world.
Goals.
Yeah, right? Sign me up.
Jesus Christ. What? Let me go to the Fiji Islands real fast when this is all over.
Let's do it.
Right now, shit. No one's going anywhere right now. It's crazy.
Working for Leica, do you get like opportunities like that?
So the opportunities that I've received from Leica have been like holding a workshop, for example. We want to do more. They've just been so busy. We knock on their door all the time saying, hey, how can we do more for you? My husband went and shot for like a campaign recently at the Salton Sea. That was like a 3-day gig, and then he's doing a blog post for them too.
Oh, nice.
I was supposed to do a gallery at the Leica store in Miami, but I feel like everything's just kind of being postponed. So opportunities like that to showcase work and to hold workshops to then, be a light in this community and to showcase what we're all learning and exploring at the same time. But yeah, no, it's been great, and they've sent us 2 cameras, which is awesome. They sent us a Leica QP, which is like their small point and shoot, full frame, but 28 millimeters, and it's awesome. It's really fun. And they also sent us the Leica M10P. So that one's kind of like a beautiful workhorse, especially if you go out and do street photography. That's kind of the one you want to pick up and take with you.
What was the first one that you said?
The QP, like Queen Pickles.
QP.
QP.
Yeah.
Like a Queen Pickles.
Like a Queen P. I'll go grab them real quick. I'll show you. They're actually really cute. 1 second.
Yeah, nice.
I want a full frame point and shoot. That'd be sick.
Jenae, you should like show that whole row of cameras you got underneath the TV.
Full frame point and shoot. That
That's
sounds super
changer.
nice.
Okay, so this is the QP,
Ooh.
and it's 28 millimeters. It can do fully automatic focusing and
Hold
shooting.
up, keep doing that. I'm gonna do a little boomerang real fast. Hey.
Boom. Boom out. Right.
Wait, hold up. One more time. Wait, hold up. I gotta get this. Wait.
Is that a camo
Say something? I can't
camera
see.
strap too?
I can't see. Wait, do you guys gotta stop talking because I can't see her on the screen. Can you say something again, Jenae?
Oh yeah.
Laugh a
Okay,
little
so here I'm turning it back and forth.
There we go.
Back and forth for you, B.
Hey. I got it. I don't know if you can see
it's
that.
a camera strap.
Nice.
That's dope. That looks so cool. You're such a creative. I love it.
I had to get it.
Oh my gosh, I totally forgot, you guys. Before this conversation started, I really wanted to light this candle. The Nüfly candle.
What?
Oh,
Like, I totally forgot, and it's here, so we're
Wait.
so light it up.
How did she
You can't just drop that, Jenae. You gotta talk to us like what
Okay.
candle blend is it? What scent is it?
This is just a white candle. It's purely just
oh my
cleansing.
god! Wait, hold up. I'm gonna go back.
I light candles to, it's fire, it's energy, energy is really hard to produce. And so this is like a way to generate energy. And then you set an intention. So this intention is for the success of your magazine and the success of this team moving forward. So this was just, I meant to have this burning this whole time, but now it's lit. And I'm going to put it in the background.
It's lit.
It's lit.
Literally.
This got goose.
It's literally lit.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Did I tell you about the candle?
I'm like burning a candle right here too, actually.
That's what's up.
I'm also burning a candle. Can you see that in the back?
I see it.
There's a little candle right
fire
there.
element.
I got my lantern's actually real fire in the background.
That's so cool.
That's sick. So Jenae, I've always wanted to ask other people who are doing our kind of practice as like a full-time source of income. Has that been your case? And like, what was your journey like to kind of get to where you are right now in terms of financially supporting yourself?
Yeah, it's hard. I'm not gonna lie, it's really, really hard to support yourself as an artist full-time. And I'm about like 80% there supporting myself as an artist, and 20% I have this part-time job with this company called Foria. They've been a blessing because they understand that I am a creative, and they kind of let me pick and choose hours and how I can fill in to help them out.
Wow.
They're based here locally in Venice, and it's been a blessing because they're basically like grocery money every single week, and they help me out. But it is hard. Like as an artist, you're constantly working. Like you give up the 9-to-5 job, but then you take on this 24/7 job.
Yes.
And I wasn't expecting that. But then if you love what you do, then you find yourself typing up those emails, doing things, and it really took lighting the fire under my butt and needing to pay bills and finding a way to do it to actually put myself out there and not be shy about it. So taking gigs that I normally would be like, no, I'm a street photographer, I'm not going to shoot weddings, but saying, actually, you know what, I'm going to shoot your wedding, of course. And do you have a baby shower that you're going to have? I'll shoot that too. Like literally being a community photographer has really helped me out because the bigger projects that I'm working on that I hope eventually will support me in the future as an artist are still in development. So things like I was in the LA Art Show last year with my husband, and we displayed photos, and those sold for $9,000, which sounds like a lot of money. It sounds like a lot of money, but in the art world, if you're not an established artist, you sell your ish for under 10K. So there's this weird thing I'm trying to understand in the art world of like where I'm at here and where I want to be, and how to establish a name and a brand. And like, not only do you have to sell your like photos or art as an artist now, you have to sell your personality too. Because people who buy your work are buying.
That's why we're doing these Twitch sessions right now. Like you gotta start somewhere, right? Narrate what you're doing and explain your story. It's a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, no, and it means a lot because like, why else would you want to invest in somebody in the art world? And
like what makes you so special, right?
Right. I mean, it could be to a really, really rich person who owns yachts around the world. It could be a tax write-off to them. But this tax write-off to them is going to go to somebody that actually makes them happy at the end of the day, or makes them feel something at the end of the day. So that's where like your personality kicks in, and your love and your passion. And there's a lot of bullshit out there too, in the art world. There's a lot that goes unnoticed. There's a lot of people who just dedicate themselves to this practice because they love it, and like that's all they know. And I feel like a lot of those people don't ever get to be shown or seen or explored. So
do you feel like you had to change yourself to kind of elevate your work as a person? Like, do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. And I think that I've had so many different types of clients that at the end of the day, there is still a part of me that is showing through my work. Like, yes, you have to adhere to what the client wants and the style and the look that they're going for. That I feel like can change what you would normally want to artistically create and show. But if you understand the direction that is trying to be created in that specific realm, then I don't feel like you really lose any part of yourself, because you're just stepping up to that challenge then.
Like I guess,
feel
sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it. Like and I feel like, yes, in terms of when I started taking photography, like we're exploring photography, I did a lot of street work, and then and a lot of my followers loved that street work, and then I started doing a lot of studio work, and it's, you know, you get a lot of juxtaposition from what your followers are used to you producing and showing. And then I started doing more artwork where it's like paintings and drawings, and you know, you lose followers, and it's fine, because this is just kind of who you are. And I feel like for a client, you got to do what they want to do. You got to produce what they're looking for, because they're paying you that money to do it. But for yourself, it's a harder judge, because you're doing it for yourself. You know, you're doing it to push your own creativity and challenge. And if people don't like it, that's opinion. And maybe they won't understand what you're doing until way later, or maybe not understand it at all. And I don't know, at the end of the day, who's to say? Yeah, everyone's really creating and putting things out there that, like, if you take that time to just get down on yourself and be like, why aren't people liking my shit? I think that kind of keeps you from being able to create that next masterpiece.
Yeah, because I think, like, at the end of the day, you know, when you're doing client work, it's not your work at the end of the day, right? It's, they're paying you, and it's like, you're not putting, yeah, you want to put in your portfolio, but at the same time, it's like you're doing it for them, right? Like,
right. So like client work, let's say if I was shooting for like Adidas runners, I did a lot of work for them last year.
Nice.
I never posted any kind of shots that I took from those gigs on any of my, like, my profile, for example. But it was very useful to then use those photos to then put in a profile or portfolio to send to other clients to show what you're capable of. So I don't think any work is like lost in terms of like the value of it. I think there's always value in what you're producing. It depends on who you're talking to and what you're
how you move it, kind of. I guess another question is, like, you know, kind of going back to you taking gigs for like baby showers or weddings or whatever, and you were doing street photography. Do you feel like, kind of like, I think I go through this a lot, kind of people coming at me for freelance gigs or whatever. It's like, do I say no if I don't want to do it? Like, or do I just say yes and just be a yes man? Because I think going through this career that I've been going through is like, I want to get as much gigs as I can. I want to create this body of work or whatever, but it doesn't pertain to what I want to do personally as a creative. So it's like, how do you judge between that, you know, taking in gigs, like, say that it's financially you need the money, but then it doesn't pertain to your portfolio at all, right? It's like that outlier. Like, how do you maneuver through that? Like,
that's a really, really beautiful question. And I think it's something that as an artist, we all struggle with, you know? Half of our brain just wants to be creative, and the other half has to feed that brain that wants to be creative. And so I think part of dealing with that is accepting that this is just a way of reality right now. And then seeing that in accepting this way in reality, then maybe projecting where you want to go and where you want to see yourself in the future. Like, have that goal in mind where you're like, no, I don't need to do any more weddings or baby showers or whatever. I have this one company hitting me up for specifically designed work that's going to pay me for the half a year. You know, like, have those goals in mind and keep manifesting those. But then also I think it's important to be realistic in where you're at too. So let's say that month, let's say this month of we're in April now. Oh my gosh. Coronavirus just hit, you know. Maybe no gigs in terms of like weddings or any social events, but you might get a gig for product shoots. And let's say you don't really like shooting products because it's boring. You have to set up a white backdrop, some studio lights, click. It is literally just dry work. But it's also paying the bills right now when there's not less work or other like less work in other fields. So I think it's a case by case basis. It's important to be mindful of where you're at, and if it's giving you too much stress, don't do it. You know, if it's really just like if you can't stop thinking about should I do this baby shower or not, should I not, blah, just don't do it. You know, at the end of the day, that's not worth the stress.
It's funny, we were just talking earlier during our team meeting about our portfolios and like how to approach that. We've kind of landed on this, there's this diagram we saw online where it's like, here's your work, here's the best of your work, and here is more work you want to do more of, and your portfolio should exist somewhere in between that. Just to kind of like, similar to what you said, be able to showcase what you're capable of, but also still communicating to the viewer that although this is all I can do, or this is like my past work, this is what I want to continue doing. So personally for me, how I applied that for my portfolio, a lot of my landing page, at least, I focused more on portrait photography, but less more of a headshot and more of kind of a waist up shot, hopefully to communicate that you're not just looking at someone's like face, you're looking at what they're wearing in the meantime too, like full body shots. But in addition to that, I'll throw in some like event flyers. I'll put that flyer on a mock-up iPhone, just to communicate like, hey, you know, I do dabble in Photoshop also. But yeah, it's always been a very tricky conversation to kind of like figure out how you can do what fulfills you, but at the same time allow you to thrive financially too. I'm pretty fortunate to be working with one client right now, which I am specifically doing product photography, which you just mentioned for them. It's been working out really well because they've been able to fund my lifestyle right now, because with Nüfly, we're still starting up everything. We understand and accepted that at the beginning a lot of these things will be out of pocket when it comes down to expenses. I'm kind of bracing ourselves for when we start entering printing, because there's all these things that are these unexpected costs that are coming up that we're now kind of realizing, which kind of wanted me to segue into the magazine that you're currently working with right now. Could you tell us a little more about that, like how it came to be? What your plans are with it?
Back into like, yeah, you have a lot. I wanted to be like, yes. Your portfolio is always dependent on the client. I make a new portfolio based on every single client.
That's amazing.
Because every single client is different.
That's amazing.
You got to really take your time, go through your work, and figure out what photos not only showcase your ability, like you were saying, but then also what they were looking for. So
that's so true.
That's like just, you know, wanted to add it. And then also, what else were you saying after that? We segued into magazines. Okay. Yes. So yeah, the cost of like printing and stuff, is that like the biggest issue right now, is like generating the income in order to find the print ability, or is it like
a little bit of yes? It's a problem that we're seeing in the future that we're not currently too stressed to worry about, because we're still in the process of creating the content in the meantime. But one of my good friends, actually, who my client is right now, he's actually a graduate in printing, I pitched to him like Nüfly, told him like we want this to be like 200 plus pages, 9 by 12, matte finish. We had these ideas of like translucent pages, like perforated pages, yada yada yada. And from his perspective, it was just like dollar signs like going up, you know. He was like, you guys gotta, this is a very ambitious project that you guys are doing, and you guys have to kind of embrace yourself, and prepare yourself also in terms of how much it's gonna cost you guys to actually run those. So like in the meantime right now, we're trying to figure out ways on how to work together on these smaller projects in the meantime to help generate some funds for us in the meantime too. But it's very hard. Like the four of us are freelancers all ourselves. We have to kind of balance lifestyle and gear, you know. And on top of that, now we're having some other expenses coming from our project, you know, that we want to do. So I was just curious on how maybe you and your husband kind of maneuvered through that, how you guys were able to have those conversations and kind of like create like goals you guys could kind of attain.
Yeah, well, our magazines now, it started in 2018, and it started, it's like literally a group of friends who we all know through Instagram. We all live in Los Angeles, and decided that there's something here to photography that's so valuable and precious that we might lose it if we don't do something about it. So that was kind of like the drive behind it, is that like we all knew individually and collectively, like we're constantly taking photos of this city and seeing all the changes, that we recognize this must be happening probably all over the world too. And there's, through photography, you can document and archive and understand a time and a place. And that is really what kind of motivated us to then start it. So then we have since then released now 5 issues, 3 of them around Los Angeles, and 1 of them in San Francisco, and 1 of them in Boston. And all of these issues are curated. We basically curate photographers in those cities to produce a collection of work that not only defines their style, but also showcases something about the city that is important to preserve and is unique to the specific city. So it allows photographers, and it's not about like us, you know, it's not us going to these cities and taking these photos to then turn into this magazine. It's really about respecting the people who are living in these cities, who see it on a day-to-day. And it doesn't have to be street photography. We also go into family life too, which is really interesting. And this last issue, we just started really incorporating more about the photographer's perspective. So a lot of question answering, whereas the first issue is just photos. So we've had development, we've had changes as our magazine continues, and we're now a group of, I believe it's 10 of us total on the creative side producing, and each of us kind of have our own role. And it's a beautiful synchronicity. When we went to Boston and we drove back, it was like 5 of us out of the 10 drove back, and for like 5 days in a car, no drama. I couldn't believe it. No drama. Just like, it was really cool just to see all of us just happy to be exploring. So the magazine itself, like, you know, we've been grateful that the team members have been able to be super efficient about where to produce it, and we produce it all locally here in Los Angeles. With like a printing company. They're great, and then we sell them online, and then we also started selling them at like store locations. So the Leica store holds our magazines. Trying to like make these connections with other establishments that are also in this realm of, you know, the right approach to art and what we what our heartbeats connect with. So we are trying to find more avenues and also maybe libraries or collections to put our magazines into and kind of have as an archival place. So that's kind of been our strategy in terms of like production and reaching people is to just hit up more cities, spread the word organically. We just got a downtown location spot for our magazine, so our store location.
Wow.
And we're so stoked because it's on Los Angeles Street, which is very, it just means a lot to have our magazine, which is produced in LA, to be on a Los Angeles street. We get to see a lot of the happenings in downtown. 1 block away.
Crazy fucking shit, dude. Even like the last time, like, yeah, what the hell was that?
So Belinda and I walked to like a 7-Eleven to grab something real quick, and we literally missed 2 ladies fighting outside of the shop.
Whoa.
And they were fighting to the point where one lady took off the clothes, like took the dress off the other lady. And by the time Belinda and I got to the front of the shop, the lady was walking away in her underwear, just like screaming obscenities.
Whoa.
Like, and I'm kind of glad I missed the whole thing, because I probably would have stepped in. If it's 2 ladies fighting, like 2 men fighting, that's something else. But like 2 ladies fighting, you're like, come on, like, what are you doing? Especially if one's getting her dress ripped off and everybody else is just like filming and watching. Like, I don't know. I'm glad I wasn't there. So
we would have been like, yo, y'all need to move the fuck away from each other, you know? Because she was not giving a fuck. She was literally tearing her clothes off to get away. She was just like dragging her body away from this person. I was like, what the hell? Like,
it was wild. Yeah, downtown is wild. So we're lucky to have
officers are like, you know, on horses, just going like down the street. It's insane.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's good. It's really good. The horses were wild too. Like, but I think having that place, which is now half of it is retail, where we're going to be able to sell. We also sell like merchandise. So we've made T-shirts. My husband designs all the merchandise.
Wow.
We've made beanies, and we also sell like a really small collection of cameras and like top end film that's really hard to find.
What?
So it's very boutique-y. Like, yeah, there's this one film, I think it's going for like $100, $150, $100 film. It's like fucking crazy.
Wait, per roll?
Per roll.
What?
Yeah, because they stopped making it. It's this Japanese film, Natura 1600, and it's like they just stopped making it. So it's hard to find. And when we were in Asia, we picked up a bunch of these rolls. So we just happen to have it.
Wow.
So we're selling them now at the shop. So it's like not only magazines, but like also really specialty boutique film and cameras, and keeping it very small and minimalistic and controlled. Because we don't want to just like be a retail store, you know, and sell all this stuff, but we also need to support ourselves too.
I have a 2-part question. When did you guys start These Streets magazine? And also, what made you choose going the magazine route versus like online digital?
These Streets magazine, I'd say officially started September 2018. And then we decided not to go online because there's this quote, and it says, you don't have a photo until you have a print. There's something about holding a photo in your hands that makes you see like it's kind of crazy, the ability of a camera to take in this realm, which we can't even break or whatever, we can't get away from, to be able to capture this moment and then translate it onto a piece of physical paper is magic. And so we really wanted to play on that and preserve that aspect too.
Awesome. So do you guys have to kind of choose like what you put online versus what you put on the magazine? Is it separated, or is it kind of like, you know, you're showcasing both on both platforms?
We have a pretty strong online, like active online presence where, and I gotta commend Josh, who's our founder. for doing this. He's the founder and chief editor, Josh Zamudio. He basically is like the brains behind the magazine and keeps it going. So online we have a blog series, and the blog series highlights profiles of photographers and also current events. And we, as like a collective of the 10 behind us, if there's like, you know, for example, when Kobe passed, there was a bunch of people gathering at the Staples Center. We all went out as like photo agents to go and capture what was going on. And then one of us will write up a little article briefing, and then we show the photos. So it's kind of like current events and what's happening around the city that we post online. And then also we look for photographers to highlight around the world. So in this day and age of COVID-19, we've actually been looking for people that are documenting how COVID-19 is affecting them. We found this great photographer in Malaysia who was just like going out on the streets with his camera, taking photos. And we asked if it would be okay to do a little blog post about them. So we added that to our website. There's also, it doesn't have to be current, but there could be somebody, for example, he went to Cuba, this other photographer, and has been doing like ongoing project series there. So we try to find these artists that are doing their own work and documenting and highlight them on our website too.
I have a question.
Yeah.
This relates to how on the topic you were mentioning earlier about how you can't just only sell your work, you have to also sell your personality. How do you guys kind of unify your voice amongst these 10 artists to kind of like have one singular voice that kind of speaks for everyone in the meantime for your magazine?
You know, that's a great question. Because it was Josh's real idea, we just kind of let him take the lead in what he wants to do. So if he wants to incorporate these certain things, that's fine. My husband really manages the financial side of it, and I manage relationship side of it. So we kind of just like, because I completely believe in this guy and his vision. He's been thinking about this, and he gave up his whole everything to dedicate into this magazine. So everything that he's been coming up with and the momentum that he's putting behind it, we've all just been saying, yeah, hell yeah, down, let's do it. If he does kind of go too much, like let's say trying to do a lot of events that we're not capable of doing, for example, then we'll pull back and say, I don't think that's feasible right now. But it's not like a hard conversation to have. Like it really helps that all of us are homies. We all really care about each other too. It's a really beautiful symbiotic relationship that allows for then this one person to then have this vision, and all of us just, yeah, hell yeah, we totally agree and respect you for that. He's come up with so many ideas that I'm so proud of him. Like I can't wait to hear what he's going to come up with next. And I feel like every company kind of needs to have that one person who comes up with these crazy ideas, and everybody else go, okay, yes, that one's possible, let's do that one. And then you kind of have to just let that person be. And if that person needs to go and, you know, take a couple days off to do whatever, that's their regenerative juice mojo. That's how they work. And so part of, I guess, like being in a team is understanding how each other work. So I respect Josh too, because he took on this leadership position, and he continues it. So every week he'll send out a text message to our group, and honestly, not all of us, sometimes nobody replies. Okay, sometimes nobody replies to these awesome, beautifully expressive, like energetic messages. Happy Monday, team! Yeah, let's go. Nobody replies sometimes. Okay, but that's fine, because like you gotta, like,
we're laughing because this happens in our group chat.
Like for real though.
It happens.
Yeah.
And you just gotta like not take things personally, and he doesn't. He just knows that that's his role, and
So
he's
true.
gonna step into that role every single time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's beautiful. I appreciate that.
That's very well said. It's been a very interesting experience for us because we're all coming together and we're trying to kind of align ourselves in terms of what's going on in between Belinda's and I's head, right? We have this idea, and we have these concepts in our head, and we brought in Cas and Don, who really want to make this happen as well. But some of the issues we kind of experienced were when it comes down to like a specific preference on a project, we have kind of like a lot of inputs going on where one party will believe very firmly on one side and another on another side. And through time, we're kind of learning how one another work. Sometimes decisions won't be made that meeting, but it was definitely a challenge I didn't anticipate coming in, which I don't know why it sounds obvious when you're working with 4 artists. We're very we put our all into our work, and we're learning that when we're kind of critiquing one another, there's like a particular process how each one of us likes to hear it, and it's as much as like we want to be like our instant like BFFs to one another, we understand that we have like our individual lives too, and that it's very important to nurture our individual life before we can offer anything to Nüfly too. So what that means sometimes is just like taking some days off in the meantime, or just trying to really sharpen our communication skills. I think the 4 of us can agree that we're very lone wolves when it comes down to like how we do our projects. We're kind of like, we've kind of figured out our own process. We've been working with clients in the meantime. We have successful relationships with clients that makes us kind of it kind of embeds the process into how we operate. But then now when we're working with one another, it's like your process becomes shaken up because you have to start really understanding how to communicate your approach, really understanding how to communicate why something isn't like matching to what you have in your head also. And it's been a pretty big journey for us, and yeah, I think it's a very exciting way also to kind of like come together as a team when normally we would be doing this ourselves, but kind of accepting that Nüfly cannot be what it is if it was just Belinda and I. Like Nüfly cannot be with just me, or it can't just be without Belinda. Like just kind of understanding that we all have to operate together in order to make this work has been a very challenging but fruitful process that we've been kind of experiencing.
I totally agree with you. Power to the numbers, honestly. And if you can figure out a way to overcome your own personal your own personal like ticks, it's really about understanding yourself. You can try to understand the other players as well, but if you really try to understand yourself first, like you were saying, you gotta take care of that self. Realize you're good at communicating in certain ways and not good at communicating in other ways, and
Right.
like tell that to the team, like let it be known, like, hey, I'm actually not okay when we talk about things late at night. I am super tired late at night, things like that, or it takes me a while to get back to emails, or I don't check my emails, you need to send me a text message for me to check my emails. Things like that, are all about learning, and you guys are such a new team, and it's cool that you guys have 4 on board. Like, that's beautiful. I think 1's difficult, 2's hard, 3 and 4, that's when you can kind of and realize what the strengths are on your team, and be okay with putting things on other people, and be okay with the time that it takes for other people to do these things.
So true.
We all have so many things that we're trying to juggle and balance in our lives that maybe I'd say I'd be done with that by tomorrow, but actually my deadline's 3 days from now and I just didn't know it, and like to then as the leader recognize that and actually allocate for more time and more planning, because it does take a long time for things to get going and to happen. Deadlines are very important. They're super important to follow to keep things moving, but then also breathe in that kindness and flexibility too.
Preach. Seriously.
I have a question.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. Like, we're just dealing with 4 people. Like, you have 10 people. Like, I'm imagining like 6 more people, because we're gonna have to build it. I know over time, like, you look at the magazine staff on some magazines, like there's like a dozen people in just one team. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
Oh yeah, I mean, like some of us work more than others. Like that's for sure. And like we just did like a company split where we allocated, how much each person's getting in terms of the equity, and it's really based off of how much each person puts in. And that was a difficult conversation to have. It's hard to put your friends in percentages. And be like, look, this is how much you are contributing and probably will be contributing. So this is how much you get as a percentage. And it's not easy, but it's realistic. And it also shows you who's down to do the work. And you guys have a 4, so it's much easier to do that split with a 10. It's like, it's really difficult. Like there's like a core of the 5 of us that keep us really, really going and moving. And then the other 5 are equally as important. It's just like, we're not there where we need them all the time, where we can get them out of their own 9-to-5 jobs, and fully dedicated into these streets magazine. So it's a process, and it's going to take a while. And especially with this virus, we're now kind of just in this limbo mode. We were going to have our magazine launch with like a exhibition party and like a photo walk and a discussion, and all of that got kind of postponed. So we're now in this kind of phase of, what do we do about it? Do we still kind of do a launch to keep it alive, or do we now work on a 6th issue and just kind of call this one dead? So these are hard conversations that we're starting to have in these times that no one's expected. But if you have this core team and you have people dedicated, and you really like outline the duties, and you don't step into other people's duties, like it'll go pretty smoothly.
Yeah, we literally just established all our roles like a few weeks ago.
That's big.
Yeah, we had a Zoom call with this business coach in Berlin that Don found, and we just kind of broke down like what we could work on, and gave us a lot of really helpful suggestions. I just like learned a lot through that. And then afterwards we're like, okay guys, like what are our roles? Like let's establish all our roles, because there seems to be some confusion here. I
guess the question is like kind of tying back to the equity part, and kind of like when you guys, I'm just wondering like when you guys started generating money or a profit as a whole, and also kind of like how did that go for you guys? Like was that a topic when you guys started the magazine? Like, are we gonna start generating a profit, or is that like just like a personal project that, what's his name, Josh kind of led?
Yeah, it started off as a personal, just like kind of I guess something to do, something bigger than yourself to do. The magazine, it makes some money, but we do have to be smart in what else we're going to do in the meantime, because you can only sell so many prints to keep your store running downtown LA. So alongside of being a magazine, we also utilize our skills as creatives in being a production company. So we've been landing jobs and contracts with companies to produce work for them, and whether that be, like we did a lot of video content last year, and that helped us keep our store going and running. We partnered with United Way, and they had this new campaign called Everyone In campaign, and basically we liked the project because it dealt with homelessness in Los Angeles, which up in the Bay Area too is just such a sad, big issue. So United Way and Everyone In basically wanted to document and showcase the process of what it's like to live on the streets, and then what it's like to be onboarded into a new home situation, and then also what it's like to be a person that's managing the process. So because United Way does a lot of those projects, we were able to then film, and then that gave us a substantial amount of money to then be able to produce our next magazine. So
I have a question.
Yeah.
We actually touched on that subject on how we could put our 4 skill sets together to kind of approach prospect businesses to ultimately kind of create a business relationship with them. Some of the roadblocks that we kind of encountered were that we may run into the risk where we end up spending more time on making money with these projects than actually creating content for the magazine. Is that something you guys kind of experienced too? And how did you guys kind of balance those times? Yeah.
That's a great question. I mean, the magazine, because it's so our own, we don't promise that we're going to release every month. We don't make any promises that we're going to release that year. We just promise that we are going to curate an epic set of photos from a city that when we have the time and ability to produce, we'll do it. So as a team on the back end, I'll meet with Josh and my husband and the other core members, and we'll say, what's feasible right now? You know, what's our budget? What's feasible? Can we do another LA, like city, whatever, curate another LA issue? Can we go to a different city? Do we have any connections that we can reach out to right now and start that conversation? So it's really like we take it step at a time and see what's possible. And then once we get to that point of like, we'll announce that we're gonna do a magazine once we actually have the people curated and the team, like basically the photographers that are going to be in the issue, we have them confirmed, we have their photos, then we're saying, okay, we have enough to release. But we don't make any promises, and we really don't abide by like having to produce. We really have to take care of ourselves. And we're not trying to rush the process. We're trying to create some really quality magazines. And so that does take time. And so far, it's been really receptive in the community. We don't get any people demanding like, yo, when are you going to produce that next magazine? I feel like the world goes by so fast sometimes that, you know, it's kind of nice to just toss in an announcement. Like, hey, we're going to do this in a couple months. Stay tuned.
Yeah, that reminds me of an early conversation that Belinda and I had when I was pitching Nüfly during the early days to one of my friends who also really enjoys collecting magazines like me. When I was telling it to him, we started talking around the term issue, like issue 1, issue 2. We were talking about our own personal experiences with magazines and how exciting it is to pick one up. You kind of flip through it, you kind of slow down on the pages you like, but as soon as you reach the end, like you're already ready for the next issue. You know, your mindset's like, I want more, you know. In contrast to that, when you pick up a book, for example, and you see the term maybe volume 4 on it, I think your approach to it becomes a lot more slow. And in addition to that, me owning volume 4 and not having 1, 2, and 3 makes me feel incomplete. If I had issue 16 of a magazine, I wouldn't really care too much about 15 to 1 because that's just old news. So what we're trying to do with Nüfly is kind of position ourselves as an art therapy book, as an art book fundamentally, although we're kind of coining it as Nüfly Mag. But yeah, that's just a really interesting situation, and I think we all kind of agreed already as a team to kind of when we created our social medias, it was more so to kind of introduce ourselves, and we did not give ourselves any specific deadlines because we know how how long individually us kind of have different timelines for our projects, and it takes a lot of patience, communication to kind of get things done. But then
we want like a 200 plus page
right,
book, like
right.
not just, you know, a regular sized magazine issue. So it's gonna, you know,
it's a massive project.
Yeah.
So during our video call with the business coach that Don introduced to us, he gave us a suggestion of working on smaller projects together related to the magazine, completing those, celebrating those together, and ideally, the more of these smaller projects we complete, we can take snippets from every one of these small projects and apply it into the bigger magazine as a whole. So we've been really accepting about that, and that's currently actually what we're doing right now for our campaign.
That's so cool. That makes it, I feel like, more like a volume than an issue, to be honest. Like if you're taking the best chunks in a certain amount of time and then going off of that's definitely more volume than issue, you know, because it's kind of it's a collective at that point, and it is more book-like, and because it's so interactive, it's not just going to be this like flip through thing, done, you know, next. And I love that. I love that you're putting that intention behind it, because I feel like intention is everything, and if you have that as a goal, that's going to translate so much stronger because you have that.
So true. I just want to give us a time check.
It's also crazy. Sorry, hold up.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, no, it's just we're talking about the smaller project, right? So it's crazy that you wrote our name down on your candle and everything, because that is literally what we're working on right now for our smaller project.
Your name? Or
no, I mean, like we tapped this ceramic artist in Oakland, and she's making us like 50 ceramic candles.
No way.
It's like lemongrass and lavender, and it's going to be like an 8-ounce candle, and she's donating her time and energy. We're just going to pay for her supplies, and then the money that we make from the candle. And also Dan is designing a poster zine right now at the moment too.
Oh, I love it. How cool.
Page like sold out poster zine that's going to have a QR code to like a playlist of mixes that I tapped like 4 different DJs to make for us. It's going to be like 20-minute mixes, so you will only be able to access it with that QR code on the poster zine. So we're planning on selling that as a package, and then we're going to donate some of the proceeds to this artist down in San Diego. She's a seamstress, and she's like made over 2,000 masks and like worked with 5 different hospitals to like supply them with masks that they could wash and reuse, because they're so short. So yeah.
How'd you get in touch with her? That's so cool.
Her name's Riza. That's her IG handle, but her name's Riza, and I met her last year when she was up here for a show, and I just got connected with her through that. You know, she knows a lot of music.
She knows Cas.
She knows Cas.
Coincidentally.
So random.
She's one of my. I've known her for like almost 10 years now.
Wow.
She's just a good homie. Cool homie.
Oh, that's so cool. I love it. I love when you like put yourself out there and you really get to know what people are good at and what interests them, and how the world is actually really small.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I don't know. We're really excited about the project, and it's gonna be cool. And yeah, it's crazy that you lit a candle for us, like the exact thing.
That's wild. Crazy timing.
Yeah. Sorry, Dan. You were doing a time check, right?
Yeah. I just wanted to give sufficient time for Jenae to kind of lead into like her editing process. I think it was a perfect segue. Earlier, Jenae just mentioned like when working with one another, kind of discovering how one another works in the meantime. So what we've been doing, at least on this Twitch channel at the very least, is kind of pulling back the curtains on how we're operating as a team. We want people who are interested to kind of be able to easily engage with us and also kind of know what's going on behind the backgrounds. So what that means is that a lot of like the photo shoot sessions we've been doing, I'll kind of walk through my process and how I like edit the photos. I'll go through as many photos as I could, just kind of breaking down my approach, talking about like why I'm doing certain things, and pretty much having an inner dialogue outside. Belinda did that last time, and we were really excited to hear that you're willing to do that with us too. So I wanted to transition this process. In the meantime, if you want to, I want to keep it open to you. If you want to maybe start with as early as, oh, this is how I develop film or how I scan film, or even if you want to just go like, oh, I'm gonna edit these 5 photos today. It's an open format, but just kind of like going through your approaches, your procedures, and we'll be the 4 of us have edit experience. I think we do, but we have editing experience that we'd love to kind of look in the meantime, kind of chime in, and maybe we could do that for like an hour, and then if you want to keep continuing how we're feeling at that time, we could keep doing that too, or what we had originally planned if you kind of want to take a break, because we know how exhausting it can be kind of explaining your process verbally. A lot of us kind of don't really do that.
I was dead after like
Yeah.
for 3 hours.
Belinda hosted us for 3
last
hours.
Saturday. I'm not used to explaining how I edit my videos.
Yeah.
And I would just be like staring, like I would just be like working and like staring at what I was doing, and then I wouldn't be seeing anything. I'd be like,
and then I'll have to check in like, Belinda, what are you doing?
But like this isn't like a step by step. I remember Nordy and I were having a bit of a fight last time. Like I was down there about, you know, sharing our secrets, right? It's like we don't have to completely like do this step by step, but we can at least give them kind of an insight into like our thought process, right?
Absolutely. Well, I hope I'm useful, because like I just gotta say, editing's like my least favorite thing to do.
Oh, what?
So I know with photos, it's really my least favorite thing to do. I try to shoot as much as possible to like when I'm out there shooting, I really try to just capture that so that I have less to have to work with and deal with. But I'm very happy to share my editing process, and you can tell me if you want to look through like studio work or if you want to see some street stuff. I know Belinda posted like a photo of mine of Nordy skateboarding. So I mean, I can go through that photo and pull it up.
That'd be cool. I love your black and white photography work. I mean, you just get like the silhouettes so right. And all your IG
how I get those
stuff too.
It's super simple, you guys. You're gonna love it.
You also live right by LAX too, and you always get like the sickest like airplane shots. Like those are so sick.
Nice.
I do live by LAX. There's like a photo right there on the wall that Nordy took, and it's like, it's hard to see, but it's like an airplane, palm tree. And,
I do see that palm tree.
There's not a lot of planes in the sky right now. We used to, like, if you go out on the street, you'd be able to see, it looks like UFOs trying to land, just like 8 or 9 planes, but not anymore.
Yeah, quarantine world we're living in.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
Yeah, whatever you feel like.
Do I share my screen then?
Just share your screen, and then I'll adjust our Twitch viewers' scene accordingly.
Open system.
I'll be jumping in and out of the background, guys.
Yeah.
Just let you know.
Oh, you
Thanks,
just
guys.
you know that green button down below? If you just click that.
Open system. Okay. Alright, you guys.
When you hit so on your Zoom window,
So I hit share, and then okay.
and then you hit there we go.
Yes, you can see my screen.
We can see your screen.
Hey, okay, perfect. So I edit in Lightroom only. I haven't really played with Photoshop too much. And it's probably because I honestly don't really like editing so much. So I just don't, I feel like Lightroom gives you a really good basic outline of how you can adjust images and almost like camera settings, which is really fun. So let's start. This is the library, which I'm sure you guys are all familiar with. My catalog at the moment only has like 192 photos. And that's because I recently cleared out my computer, and I didn't know that when I cleared out whatever Lightroom was, it cleared out my catalog too. So I had about 5,000 images on there. But to be honest, I'm stoked to be down to 192 because who's editing 5,000 images? Like, I would literally just be scrolling through here, seeing the same kind of images and be like, nah, I'm never. So it's been a blessing to receive a new fresh catalog. I'll start with this one. This is a film shot that I did.
Wow.
This was taken with my M6, and I'll do this.
Did you scan? Did you develop? Do you develop and scan at home?
I do not develop. I develop at Sammy's Camera.
Nice.
I think there's a Sammy's Camera up in the Bay Area too.
There is, yeah.
Nice. It's like a big blue store, and they actually have a nice parking lot, which is great because there's no parking in the Bay Area. We both, Nordy and I, will go to Sammy's and we'll drop off a bunch of film. And for about $6, they will develop it. And when they develop it, they do it develop only, so they don't cut the film. And the reason for that is because the scan holders we have are like the film holders, I should say, that we put the film in after we're done scanning. I'll just show you real quick. One second. Never mind. Different room. Sorry, guys.
That's okay.
It's basically like these folders that hold your film in, and they only go 5 across, like 5 35 millimeter films across. And so if you get them cut by Sammy's, they cut them 6 across. So you end up with this one weird 35 millimeter film sticking out of your holder. So we say develop only, that way we can cut it to however we want. This is, when I scan it at a pretty high resolution, like 4200 DPI. Let me pull up my scanner right here so you can see.
I scan at 2400. So for context, when you're scanning film, you usually, like, there's this I forgot, there's a term for it, but there's a soft spot for whichever scanner you're using that you should be scanning on to get the optimal pixels in. And then you would lower the resolution in Photoshop afterwards. Well, that's just one way that I learned on how to get better scanning results.
Wait, say that again.
So I've learned online, just for context too, I shoot on medium format, so my I think 120 is a little more forgiving than 35. But when I was looking up some suggestions on how to get better scan results, I came across this YouTube video where this guy was talking about there is a specific website, I don't have it off the top of my head right now, but it kind of does a review on common film scanners, and for each scanner there's like an optimal number for the DPI that you put on, that you set it in, because the logic is that if you do anything more than that, you're just going to get repeating pixels.
It's just trying to fill in.
Exactly. And
it can lead to grain and stuff that's like confusing colors that pop out. Definitely.
And then so you set that and you scan it, and you're supposed to, the next step would be to lower the resolution again when you're in Photoshop, just to help sharpen the image in the meantime too. But that was just one approach that I saw. I see that these are TIFF files too, which
TIFF files,
which I've learned the hard way, that when it comes down to print, TIFF is one of the better formats to save your files in, because there's not as much compression going, if any compression going on, compared to JPEGs, PNGs.
And I think it's it's just a more workable file format. I feel like it translates more so through a lot of programs and mediums. And yeah, it pulls a lot of information too. So it's basically like getting a raw photo from a film scan, which is great because then you can really play with it.
Well said.
This right here. So I like the composition. I like I say, like I really try not to, let's see, whoops, if I can pull this down. I really try not to play around with it too much, you know, in terms of like adjusting or balancing the photo, because a lot of the work that you're doing, if you're out there trying to take photos, that's already that's like most of the work. So I really try to do most of the work when I'm out there. But let's just say I didn't understand my frame lines when I was looking through the rangefinder. And so technically, ideally, I wouldn't have had that top bit. You see that top bit right there? It's kind of distracting to me in this image because it kind of doesn't really add. That little red line at the top doesn't really add to it. This kind of cuts into the composition right up here. So if I were to post this on my site, I'd probably do just a little trim right here, and then adjust so that the angles at least are making sense. My favorite thing to do is to match angles. You see this angle, it's coming from the photo. My favorite thing is to match it to corners, if that's possible, just because the eye really likes that. So
the geometry of it.
Yes, the eye loves the geometry of it. And you see there's actually another angle here that I could technically match this corner, but I feel like if I did that, it would play with the image way too much. It would look a little just kind of warpy, you know? So I could technically, if I wanted to follow those angle lines, do this and crop it. But at that point, this leading line here in the center becomes so off skew. So that angle is not worth trying to get. So at least one angle into that corner is like a good go-to kind of with photography, just to get that leading line. And then, all right, that looks pretty good. So I'll say enter, I press enter and it crops it right there. I'm looking now at my exposure. So on the develop tab, I go through this list starting with exposure and I just go down. Simple. So exposure looks fine to me here, but I'm just going to play with it so we can see what it looks like if I add or subtract. So I'm adding in a little exposure here and you can see it's just way too bright. You lose a lot of detail up at the top when you do that. So we'll bring it, let's see if we go down, it's definitely too dark. There's too many shadows. So that exposure at 0 was just fine for me. What I'm not liking when I see this image here is I see this top white bit is really, really blown out. And I'm matching it to this white up here. So I like to edit with a white frame, just so that I can match my whites to this white, or at least get an idea of what true white looks like. So in that case, I will then jump to highlights actually, because I noticed that white was just a lot for me. So let me bring down those highlights a little bit, and that way I can see detail all around the edges of that box right there. Whereas before, that detail is not as sharp. So bringing the highlights down allows for detail to be pulled into the image. And then I like every bar that you go and drag and drop down here with exposure, highlight, shadow, it affects something else. So like a perfect image, you don't really need to do anything with. And as soon as you start playing with it, you have to balance what you're playing with. So by bringing down the shadows, I might now need to, bringing down the highlights, I might now need to add a little bit of shadow detail by bringing that up, maybe 22. I drag it. My husband likes to put increments in here. So he'll go like 19, for example, and he knows that's the number he wants. For me, I need to.
I'm super OCD about that too. Actually, I divide I do the numbers. Actually, when I do stuff like that, I'll be like, all right, you know, if I like, let's say if I bumped up my exposure by like 0.30, right? It's always by like at the exactly point like 30 or 0.15 or 0.75. And then I'll kind of try to match the contrast too with that. Like I'll bump up the contrast, and then I'll turn down the highlights to like -75. Everything's like 25, 50, 75. Like
Oh, for
it's all
sure. So you
like,
hit those 5 increments. Okay.
yeah, like 5 or 0 increments a lot. I don't do like 0.22. Not that I'm jocking you or anything. I'm just like, you know, everybody's got
Yeah, no, I love it.
I'm like super OCD with my shit, and then I'll like try to match everything like that too, like so there's kind of some kind of consistency happening. Yeah, it's
fun. It's really fun to play around. I love hearing that, like, you know, the numbers thing. I couldn't, like,
I feel like you're painting right now too, because Jenae also paints and does really amazing little pieces. So I feel like that's probably where you're thinking of, like, you're just like, I'm just painting right now. I don't really care about numbers.
Playing.
I'm just playing and like seeing how it looks in front of me. Like, who cares about all these numbers? My number OCD mind like can't just get out of that mode. But dude, it's awesome.
That's a really good point. Like, when I go to edit a photo, it's a mood. It really is. It's a mood, especially what photo I want to pick that day. For example, like I'll go.
By the way, that photo turned out great. Like,
oh, so, thanks. I'll go back to this one.
Like, I see all the grittiness now. Like, I didn't even see the ground detail.
The ground detail. But it's a mood. So like, let's say I'll post this because this I know people will like to see. Like, I know this is an image that, you know, it's not like I tried really hard for this, to be honest. I'm not personally proud of this photo. I know it works because there's fun lines and there's shadows, and especially like let's do a flip just for fun. That's cool. You know, like that's also, that would work too. So it's a fun photo in that it plays with elements, but like, I know if I were to post this photo, it's because I've been posting photos that I'm just really like about myself and my mood, and I don't really care about my following, where I know my following and people that like my work really like images like this. So I'll kind of save this for a rainy day when I know I'm not like, I have been just kind of going off the charts and posting how I'm feeling and like, you know, moods and photos that don't really pertain to like you know, my style or whatever. But I'll go back to something like this, you know, just because I know it works.
Honestly, I love this one a lot because like the lines, that when you turn it vertical, it just makes it so trippy because it looks like they're walking with their shadow, you know.
Yeah, so it makes the white bars stand out more, which is strange because they're the middle thing right here, but somehow that makes them stand out more.
That's sick.
Let's see. I don't think I'd play with the whites because like it's already really bright enough. The blacks I might tone down a little bit just to make those shadows pop even more. You see that, like right there, they're a little faded, and then right here they just pop. It's similar to contrast. Like blacks in contrast and whites in contrast are very similar. It's just you have more control over the darks or the lights in that image. Whereas contrast, when you pull that up, it splits both the light and the dark at the same time. So blacks and whites, you get to pick and choose which one. So I knew my whites were just fine here. That's why I didn't touch contrast at all, because my whites were really bright. It was more about bringing that darkness from my black up a little bit.
I love the colors on this one too. Like, it just
yeah, that's film. I don't play with color. Let's see if we do vibrancy. I mean, it adds a little yellow, which is kind of nice, but like
I think as is looks already so tight. Yeah,
it's already, the colors, and that's the beauty of the film, right? We can pull this up. I love to do the tone curve just to kind of like a final check, just to make sure, because sometimes when you're looking at a computer screen for too long, you can get used to like the brightness of the screen, and so you don't really get an accurate judge of the brightness of your photo. So I like to like take a pause when I'm getting to this tone curve and kind of look away from my computer and focus on something maybe like 20 feet away, literally for like 5 seconds, and blink my eyeballs to like reset. And then I look back at this photo and see like, okay, it doesn't need any tone curve, and maybe just a little down. That way this tone curve right here plays with light that's going through the same image right here. So by bringing this down a little bit, I'm able, in this realm right here, it's focusing on this part of the photo. And then I'm able to, it's almost like putting a little spotlight right here and adding some contrast. So I'm okay with that.
I just want to add a comment too.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good practice on how you change the background of your of where your photo is, like how it's white right now. What I've learned also when toggling like brightness, that it might look good, but you're like, I ran into a case where my photos, when I was editing at that time, it was on the gray background. I'm like, oh, these look moody. It's super cool. I really like it. And then I didn't account for what platform the viewer would be looking at my photo on. And when I put on Instagram, which in this case is always on the white background unless you change it to nighttime mode, but as soon as I put it on the white background, it looked way too dim. Like the brightness like did not look good. So I've learned that when I'm editing my photos now, I usually change the background based off of where the majority of the viewers will be looking on it through. And
oh, it's fascinating.
Yeah, just a side comment.
That's super cool. I love that.
Well, it sounds like she's already doing that, right?
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm just commenting. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was like, wait, what?
Definitely. And then also when you like work to, let's say like, I'm gonna export this photo, file export. When I export, I just do that, and I have a series. We can talk about organization in a little bit, but I just throw all of my edits into one folder. It's just easy for me that way. And then when I fill up my hard drive, I have a second folder. But once I actually take that photo and put it on my phone, I'll do like an airdrop, to my phone.
Yeah.
That photo, that's the easiest way to do it in my case. But once I do that, I will actually add more brightness before I post it on Instagram. I think it's kind of what you were saying about just the platforms, and maybe people don't have their screens up all the way like we are when we're editing. Right. So you have to take that into account too.
So true.
Like, do you guys put your brightness up all the way on your phone?
No.
I keep it on automatic, so sometimes it does it.
Maybe like 30%. I never have
Mine's
it.
on
Save the battery.
Jesus Christ. No wonder you're wearing glasses.
But I feel like it's like different, right? The vibrance is different.
Yeah.
When you look at pictures.
It's more rich when you have it at 100%.
Yeah.
Oh, Jenae, also you taught me something real with the metadata. I think you told me that you can put your name in the metadata for the photos. Remember? Yeah. That's how you can like copyright your photos. Yes. So even if somebody takes it, let's say you do go to court, you could be like, well, let's pull up the picture. My name is actually in the metadata. You don't have to that's like the ninja way of like putting your watermark on your photo.
Yeah, let me show you how to do that. Okay, so it's pretty simple. You click on any photo right here in your library, in your catalog. You got to be under the library tab. And then it's right here. It's called metadata. You pull that down and it tells you what your file name was, where you keep it and store it. And then right here, you can add whatever you want. So title, I'm just going to say this is a Jenae Lien photo. Caption, this was from Daisy Mancini, SM 2019. Copyright info, let's say Jenae Lien, just do that. Copyright status, copyrighted. Creator, that is automatically filled in because Matthew and I share everything.
Mhm.
So I can say Jenae Lien, and just that's all you really need. Everything else here is just information about this photo. So it was taken with, full frame. This was the 1/800th of a second at 4.5 f-stop, 35 millimeter focal length. Flash did not fire. Pretty interesting. And then it'll tell you exactly what kind of lens and body you were using. Fascinating information. So once you have that in there and you develop and then you go to export that photo, it's actually in, let's just go do a quick export. It's in the information of,
like if you go
this
down,
photo.
you'll be able to see
So
it on the metadata
We'll
too.
pull it up. Yeah,
But you can like
it
pull
up
up the inspector on the photo, and then you can see all the information, and it has the copyright is your name on it.
It's really cool, and it's like
you can also
it's
set it
good
as a
way.
preset too. You can make that metadata preset, and so you don't have to constantly keep putting in the information every time. You can just already have that as a preset, and then just apply the preset over your photos.
right here. So there's
You
You
that
can like
preset
save that
button.
preset. Yeah.
You can say I do like edit presets, and then right here you can just custom. Let's do. I did Hero Plushies, which is a company. And you can just put in all the information you want, and then whatever photos you want to attach that to, you can just pull down that preset. I want that here.
It's pretty
This
sick.
photo is a Hero Plushie preset photo now. So it's just a really good way to keep your photos. So here's the edit that we just added the info to, and if I do file,
In the window inspector.
window inspector, where do you see that?
Well, on the preview.
Oh, here, window.
And you have the preview, or well, I don't know where it went, but you can also.
Window inspector.
Where I thought there was, or tools. Go under. Where is? Yeah, there you go. It
So, yeah,
should
there
have
is.
it in the information. For the general information, you see
there's a
that there's
tab.
an eye.
Right.
There's an eye in the. Where was it? It should be in there somewhere.
Right
Oh, there it is.
There it is. See?
Which is so hard for us to find, which is awesome because then this is like going along with every single one of your photos. It's just a good way to keep it your own without having to do an ugly watermark of some sort.
Jenae, I have a question.
What's that?
Do you do studio photography by any chance?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, I think I heard you say that. Have you tried out Capture One?
No. So is that where as soon as you take a photo, it shows you the photo?
Yeah, so Lightroom has that capability too, where it's like tethering, but then a lot of people had a preference for just the interface for Capture One, and I was just wondering, just if you had any thoughts on that, because I started with Lightroom, but how should I say this? I go very in depth with my editing. I spend a lot of my majority of my time actually editing. I really like the process. And this might just be like a preference too, but Capture One just gave me more control over my photos. Like for example, say you're editing one of your photos that has like a film shot that has color, but you want to apply specific
Number 63
edits.
looks sick. Sorry.
Oh, yeah,
All good.
I'll show you this one.
Yeah, so 63, for example, say for example, you're editing this photo and you're changing like you're doing color grading and you're toggling like the cyan color, but on the bottom left you notice that there's kind of this slight pinkish hue that you wanted to amplify, and you weren't able to do that with your current settings because, like you said, when you change something in Lightroom, it'll affect something else in the meantime too, right? In Capture One, you can create layers with different masks. So in other words, you can stack up specific editings. Like if you wanted to do dodge and burning all in one app rather than like migrating it to Photoshop and then doing like your dodge and burning over there, if you were to do it in Capture One, you could actually do like, you could create a layer where the exposure is brighter, and then you brush in where that where you want it to be brighter, and then
That's so cool.
yeah, and then same for like darkening. But I do a lot of portraits, so a lot of the times I have a lot of trouble when I come to the skin tones for individuals. Yeah,
okay.
I personally like
You can play with one of those.
yeah, it was a little challenging for me to get the results I was looking for when I was going through Lightroom. That later been suggested that Capture One, it had a really strong skin tone editing tool that I kind of gravitated towards.
Yeah, skin's hard. Skin's hard because, like, I mean, especially if you have studios and you're trying to set up lighting, every shot can just be a little different, and then depending on the model too, everyone's just a little different in skin tone and clarity, and but I really think that, I don't know, like I'll just go through one and we'll see. I think the more you can understand lighting in the studio, the easier it allows for the skin tones later on.
Right.
When you're trying to deal with it. Let's see if I can
And just a disclaimer, by no means I'm saying like Capture One's better than Lightroom. Like, everyone has a different editing style. I just went to
Capture One gang.
Yeah, I'm not trying to convince anyone over here. I'm not promoted by Capture One or sponsored.
Sure. You always talk shit when you see me open up Lightroom. Like, oh,
I
you
do.
still on that Lightroom shit?
I
Like,
do, Jenae. I scold Belinda all the time. All from love, all from a good point.
I'm sure it's from love.
I'm just not doing like as detailed. Like, you get so detailed like into your photos. Like, I kind of just get the look of it right, and then I'm done.
That's
like,
completely
but
fair.
You legit like zoom in on people's faces. You zoom in on like a fold in their shirt. Like, you're like taking dust off of shit. Like, it's, I just don't have the patience to do that.
Yeah, yeah, which is totally fine.
Kudos to you. This is why we allocated positions, and you do you do what you do. I'll do what I do. Like, the same way you get insecure when you're on Premiere, I will probably get a little insecure on Capture One, being like, how the fuck are you doing that? I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's why we're doing these Twitch sessions too.
Yeah, just to kind of like talk about processes. I really enjoy this.
What do you guys think about filters?
Ooh.
Think about what?
Jenae, what do you Don's question was, what do you think about filters?
Unless you're doing like a wedding where you want like a little tone color to go along with everything, maybe a little hue in the shadows, if that. But honestly, if you have a huge amount of the same kind of photos, by all means, filter away. But if like, I just do individual. I think it's like too much to try to do a filter and then hope it works for every single photo.
Because it changes a photo, you know? Like, the temperature changes, the tint changes a little bit, you know.
So these two photos I have here, they were taken one right after the other. And it's because the way my studio lights fire and the way I fire them, I love to just do a continuous burst, and then that will make like 2 lights fire sometimes, maybe all 3 will fire, maybe only 1 fires, maybe none. That's kind of like how I love photography. I love like the angel of chance that you get to play with. So I don't know if you saw, but like when I was importing this, you'll see like the photos right after another are really different in how they look. And it's all because of how the lights were shooting. So you see right here, it's like really contrasty. And then here, like the tones are really even. And that's just because of how the firing was. But I like that. I like having to play and just kind of see what comes up. So in terms of these two, if I were to develop them, I really like the skin tone on this one because I think it's really beautiful and soft. This is fine here, but I see a little too much red. So that's kind of where I would start. I would start with what bothers me, which is the red. So I'll go to here, which is the red color button, and I'll start with the hue, and because it's too red, I'll try to bump it to the orange and see what that looks like. And it softens it a little bit. You see that? It went from super red to a little soft. And then I'll brighten the luminance and maybe saturation is hard to play with. You don't, especially with skin tone, because you don't want it to look gray.
Right. It's really easy to overcook when you're doing saturation.
Totally overcook, and you can't. It's not like it's not like eggs. You can go back.
Right.
Oranges are also another real big factor in skin tone, and yellow too. So orange, red, and yellow are the three that I really like to play with. This red's still a little too much. So that's getting a little more even. The yellow, I'm gonna just bump down just a little bit. But then I'll go up to here into the temperature, and I'll see if there's like an overall tint that I can kind of throw on just to kind of really balance that skin tone. So it's looking like it's when I push it towards the warmth, it looks like the skin's absorbing it a lot more, versus if I were to push it towards the blue, you see how that red blotchiness kind of pops up more. So light balance is a really beautiful tool to play with. Color balance is a really beautiful tool to play with when you're just trying to patch up these colors that just, sometimes you get random colors that like they'll come up on the sides of your face, for example, like a bright red, and that all really has to do with your white balance. So once I kind of get like a skin tone that I like, I'm like, all right, it's fine. I'll really zoom in on her face. And this is studio work, so you get to see a lot of things. And luckily, she's a very beautiful model, so there's not much that you have to really work with. One of the things I do try to do with models is like keep them as natural as possible, but then understand where they might have some places where, you know, you can just edit out like this little tiny wrinkle here. That brush stroke is way too big, by the way. I'm just doing this kind of like to show you. Way too big. So like usually when you're editing a thin line like that, you really want to zoom in on the details.
Yes.
And make sure that let's just remove that.
It's so, like as natural as possible, right?
So you can, yes. So you can see my line was really, really big. That right there is the thinness of that wrinkle. And so I'm just gonna get rid of that. And start again. So I'm gonna use and I wish I can show you my cursor, but it's like the left squiggly, bracket, squiggly bracket. I press on that to make it smaller, and then the right squiggly bracket, I press on that to make it bigger. So then I draw a thin line. I usually draw a couple lines because it is skin, and there's a lot of variances within the skin, especially if you go on a curve. So I usually go as like straight lines are great. Once you get to a curve, you kind of want to divvy it up a little bit. So
if you don't mind me, Jenae, I have a question that I think definitely varies between photographer to photographer. When you're doing skin retouching, for just your personal preference, do you have any kind of like kind of extents to how far you would go, or kind of like your like what's your approach on how much?
Okay. So how much, right? I don't want it to look blown out and unreal. I don't mind seeing moles like this, like little moles and markings. Even the hair, I think the hair is beautiful. I think that adds to it.
Yes.
Even you see these tiny little like pores right here. I think that's beautiful too. And like I feel like the eye is so used to seeing these details that when they're removed, let's remove them just for fun. To remove them, easiest way I would do it is by lowering the clarity. So let's just lower the clarity right there on the whole. That lowered it on the whole photo, but you can see those pores just vanish. And what you get is, I like to say, like a very it's porn skin. it looks like baby porn skin. You know, like this is like like skin that you would see in a magazine or pasted on some subway. You know, like it's not really real. It's very fantasy looking. It has a place, but for the purpose of studio photography, I don't like to get rid of that detail. Just for fun, we can go in the opposite direction and see, like, when you do have a lot of clarity, yes, you can see a lot of detail and it kind of gets a little distracting.
Yes.
But normally with skin, I say clarity, just kept at that. The only place where I would use clarity on skin to help minimize those pores is on like legs or arms. Usually I'll totally add a little clarity, maybe some in here. Just on the chest area, because nope, that's the wrong button. Because this button, because I think it like brightens it and it's kind of a natural highlight to the skin and where the light's coming from. But really, like, I feel like people can tell when you over edit a photo. And I mean, I've seen some photos, they look beautiful. And I think there's a place for that. So if you really want to do fashion photography, you can get those really neat, like chocolatey tones almost. Like those are really beautiful that you can get, or like these beige tones that they don't look like skin, but you know it's a photo to represent and sell something, so you accept it. So there's definitely marketing photos, but like me personally, because like, and I know her, I wouldn't want to change her too much. I think she's beautiful as is.
Just to add a comment on that, I fully agree with that. I've Sean Tucker, this YouTube photographer, he does a lot of kind of like video content on like the philosophical approach to photography. But one thing he mentioned in his comment that really stuck with me was that when it comes to retouching skin, he generally kind of like, he wouldn't change anything unless in 2 weeks it'll go away. For example, like a pimple, you know, like he's like something like that he would remove to kind of like have it not be a distraction for what the viewer. Yeah, so I've been trying to put that into practice a lot, where it's like as I'm kind of combing through like the pores and everything, blemishes I usually kind of try to balance out in the meantime. But yeah, like when it comes down to like fixing skin texture, it's usually like if it's gonna be gone in 2 weeks, just for me personally, like I'll try to take it out.
I think that's a great rule of thumb. That's a really good rule of thumb. And on the opposite spectrum, I've definitely worked with a model who had, and I forget the name of it, but like really different skin tones where it's like very discolored all over. And I totally forget. It's really pretty actually, but I didn't notice it until I started shooting her because she only had it on her hands. And I actually didn't notice it until like kind of like after the shoot. And so she was gone, and I felt like because she wasn't right in front of me, I didn't feel comfortable. Like, hey, did you want those edited? Or, you know, do you want like, you know, it was just a weird thing. But in the end, I chose to keep it, keep all her discolorations, and she really liked them. So I feel like if I were to have changed it, it's really changing her.
Right.
And that's not like a 2 week thing. That's like a lifetime thing. So it is a really interesting thing to think about. You know, what do you remove? What's the point until you get to that, like, you know, where do you stop? You know?
It's always like a dialogue I have in my head, like as I'm editing kind of like photos. It's like, oh, it's so easy to overcook all the time.
Yeah, I love that term, overcook. I'm gonna pull up a black and white photo to edit.
Please.
Jenae is also a great cook, just as a side fun fact.
Thanks so much.
A cook, a painter, a photographer. What else on the list today? What else?
She's got a garden in the back that she's growing, and she's like growing her own ingredients.
Nice.
Crazy.
We got potatoes coming in.
Wow.
We're stoked about that. So this is my husband at Granite Skate Park, which is in Sacramento. Who are you guys? He was playing on this curve, and so I think it was either a 50 millimeter, maybe a 90 millimeter lens to really hone in on the shapes in the photos, because I really try not to, like, if I can not crop, try not to crop, but I do love playing with flips. So we'll do this. Well, let's do this one for fun. So we'll import this guy and we'll go to develop. And if I'm doing a black and white photo, the first thing I do is take that saturation button all the way down, because, hey, black and white. Sometimes I shoot with a black and white mode on my camera. And that way, like, when I'm looking through the lens, I see black and white. And then actually when I'm importing them in Lightroom, they're still black and white up until this point when I hit develop. Then they turn back to color, which is the craziest, trippiest thing, because the whole time I was thinking this is a black and white photo, and then here it turns into colors. It's so crazy. So to me right now, this photo is super gray. There's not a lot of contrast. It's very flat, and it doesn't really add to the fact that he's skateboarding on this really cool ramp. So to balance out that grayness, first thing I'm going to do is add exposure. I'm going to add exposure to the point where I know that it's almost going to like get to be too much, because what I'm going to do next is balance out that contrast and bring the highlights down. So I almost am kind of overexposing to begin with right now, just to really push the whites that I can gather from this photo, because it's so gray. So I'll go with the exposure. I will add some contrast just to see, what do I need to focus on? Is it the blacks that I need to be really focused on, or is it the whites? And in this case, it's really the whites, because the blacks are fine. Blacks, how I judge blacks and whites is if my image has the darkest dark on there and the whitest white, then that's a balanced photo. I try to hit the extremes of the dark and the white range, and try to have as little grayscale as I can in the image. Not that gray is boring, but it can be a little boring. So I'll tell you a little bit more about how you can get into the grays of the colors in a bit, but just kind of balancing the image right now. I'm going to bring down the highlights just because I don't want to lose any detail. Even though I'm trying to push for the whites at this part, I don't want to lose any detail in the image, because that's important to the overall picture. I don't want to blow out anything that's unnecessary. Shadows seem fine. Whites, like I say, I'm going to play with, but I'm going to play with those more so in the color range, which we'll get into. Blacks, I think, are pretty fine. So clarity is always a nice little bump in black and white, because it kind of adds like a little graininess to it, which is fun. So just a slight amount of grain, like 5.5. Then I get down to here, and there's the color bar. And if you hit black and white, what you can actually do is focus on each of these colors individually. So I know it's like a black and white photo, but technically there's a lot of orange and yellow in there, because that's what was there in real life. So you can really play then with this scale and see. So like, here's the yellow scale. If I scale it up, you see a lot of bright, and it really only focuses on the yellow that was in the image, which is hard to see because now it's all black and white. So it just basically allows you more control over what parts you're trying to get white and what parts you're trying to get black. So I'll just kind of play with the scale a little bit. Ultimately, my goal here is just trying to add a little more white without it being way too overexposed. And if the colors, which right now don't really seem to be adding much effect, that tells me I need to go back up here to my original photo and play more with the light. So if that means adding more brightness, reducing the highlights, and then bumping up the contrast. And eventually I'm going to get to find that white and that black that I'm looking for. It's fun. It's definitely a lot of fun, and it can take some time just to kind of see, like, sometimes I'll leave a photo and I'll go back to it. But I'm fine with the curve coming in here and going out this way.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna just kind of go back to my library and then put it back up on the screen so I give my eyes a chance to kind of rest. It still looks a little gray to me, but that might just be how this image is. I'm gonna push that exposure just a little more to see. Just might have been a super bright day, and that happens sometimes. Sometimes you don't get to have the extremes of the whites and the blacks that you're looking for because the day itself doesn't have the balance of the light that you were looking for.
So true.
We'll keep it at that, which is fine. I don't like to do this, and I know some people do this, where they'll take a paintbrush and they'll go in and like change this super white, so that this person eventually just looks like they're just floating. You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
So they're just like floating in space. Some people do that. It's an editing tool, like an editing trick that people can use, which is totally fine. But if you really wanted to, you can take this time and just kind of X-nay all this extra stuff, and then what you'll get eventually is just this guy on this crazy curve right here.
Wow.
So it's really up to you in your editing process and how far you want to push a photo. This is kind of fun. So eventually you just get this guy on a curve.
Are you editing on a tablet, Jenae?
No, I'm on my computer.
Whoa, props.
Yay, thanks.
It's smooth.
I have a MacBook Pro? MacBook Pro. 13 inches.
Wait, 13 inches?
13 inches,
13?
it's small.
Oh, I don't remember. Was it 13 inches the last time I saw that? I thought it was 15 inches.
No, it's a small one. I've had it for a long time. Oh, this one might be more fun to do black and white. If you guys have the time. I'll just do
Please.
one more edit.
That's cool. Oh, I love that. Dude,
from the other day.
That looks like
in LA.
some really low aperture.
Yeah, it was fast. So I want to make sure I get one that's actually clear. So I imported a bunch of them because I wasn't sure like which one's gonna be the winner in terms of like where I nailed focus. But I really love capturing raindrops because they're so elusive and you really don't you really don't know what you're gonna get. Stop. So here there's like a really nice white black balance.
Whoa, wait, there's color in this photo?
Yeah.
Whoa.
So I shot
it was like revealed.
That.
Oh, nice.
That was the original. Leica's great. You can really push photos. Well, I'm sure a lot of cameras and photos these days you can really push. So I want to get it pretty bright without losing any detail. Lowering just a little bit of my highlights, bumping up my contrast. Let's do the black and white, right? So put down the saturation. That's looking really trippy. Kind of, we turn this upside down, might look like mushrooms growing.
Whoa.
Cool.
Damn.
But rain falls like that. And
nice.
Yeah, this is like a super simple one. I don't like to spend a lot of time editing. I like to spend a lot of time out there shooting and then maybe coming up with like a poetic caption to put along with my photos. But yeah, that's probably how I would keep it. I just stop it at like that. And you can see like it's not white, but I'm cool with that. It's fine with me today.
Man, just like that. Little adjustments and it looks amazing.
Little things. Yeah, I do recommend editing photos. I think every photo should, because when you have it on your camera, it's not as clear as if like in the pixels on the camera too, like the screen, you're not really seeing the potential of that photo until you get it onto a laptop or an iPad and you really see it. And then you can really appreciate it. But they're It's fun. I love editing photos. Every time Belinda comes, she actually sits like where I'm sitting right now, and she'll sit here, plug herself away for like a whole day, just like editing.
Dude, I remember editing that selection experience show after I shot it. You guys had was it the Super Bowl party? Y'all had like people over. I was like plugged in for, I think I was sitting there for like 15 hours straight. Like, just...
yeah, we had a whole Super Bowl party. It went over Belinda's head.
I would like take my headphones off, be like, because I would hear her screaming. I'd be like, oh, what happens? Like, oh, and I would see the replay. I was like, oh, cool. I would like take a bong rip and then like put my headphones back.
I love it.
Your guys' place is like the perfect place to just hunker down and create. It's so awesome.
It's really fun. We've had to redo it, so we redid it in a way that kind of just spoke to us. I want to show you guys. I don't know if you guys talk about organization at all in photos.
Please. That's a really.
And I know everybody kind of has a different way of doing it, so I'm just kind of I'm gonna go through how I organize my photos on my desktop.
I see a crystal bowl meditation MP3 file.
Home. So Lacey is my storage unit. It looks like this. They're really fun. I highly recommend them.
I also have a couple of them.
I have I have 2 of them right now.
That's what's up, Dan. Yep. And then, before we get into anything further, back up your hard drives. If you get to that point where they get full, at least have one backup of every hard drive.
I have like a 10 terabyte G drive right now that I keep everything on.
That's goals. That's goals right there.
Wait, just to clarify, Jenae, when you said back up your hard drives, does that mean you pretty much have 2 hard drives of the same? Oh wow.
So I have a G drive too, like Belinda. Matthew and I share a G drive where we put basically everything that's on our hard drives onto that G drive once it fills up. And then once we fill up that G drive, we'll get probably another one. Just to keep things safe.
I think I have like 3 or 4 more terabytes left on that 10 terabyte, and then I gotta get another G drive. But also, we like move around with these let's see rugged drives, So like, if something happens to that drive while we're out, at least we know in our heart, like, oh, okay, I have the G drive back home. Everything's backed up.
Well said.
It's fine,
Yes. That's what's up. Yeah, you don't want to be in that position. All your hard work
down the drain.
Down the drain.
No bueno.
So here's my photos tab. It's pretty simple. I like to, when I'm going out and shooting, I like to organize my photos based off of place first. So travel, for example, that's where I start. Because we're in the US. Let's just say I went out shooting in Venice just now. So I'm going to upload photos into a Venice folder. I went and did street photography. Where I would upload those photos is I'd pick, USA, we're in California, and Los Angeles. So I break down like state and city. And then once I get to that city where I'm now taking a lot of different photos, I break it down into types of camera. Let's do the QP. So camera type, and then from there, this is where my husband and I really have differences. I break it down into like either street photography or something I did that day, events, words. Basically, I need words in order to remember what these photos were about. So it basically starts with like a place, and then it gets broken down into camera, and then a specific event from that camera. But that's how I do it. And then when I do saves and edits, it's just one big edit folder here, and that's just literally, I just keep all my edits in here, and then I can choose whenever I need it. Sometimes I'll have a bigger folder if I do other work, like for my sister-in-law's wedding, for example. So that's my personal photos and like how I deal like with my personal work. And then clients is just really easy. I just like literally just break it down in terms of who the client is and then the different types of photos for that client. So it's really simple. Dates help
so many Adidas runners.
Yeah, but not anymore, dude.
Holders.
I think that train has passed. It's done. We're pretty much done. That was a good year, and then goodbye.
Yeah.
I think they're reworking a lot in their company and kind of just having to focus on how they're spending their funds, and so I got to work harder on filling that gap that I used to have from Adidas.
That was a crazy run though. I remember you'd be like biking with your Leica and like getting shots of them running while you're biking. Like
on my bike. Yeah. So I mean, it was good, but I'm also glad it's kind of over because it was a lot. And like it put my cameras at jeopardy too. Like I definitely think I put a dent in my camera, like from it. Like probably most likely put a dent in it. Which is not fun. Like.
Man, I haven't even thought about that. Like owning Leicas, like these are like you could pretty much buy a used car with some of these bodies that you're biking around with and like taking photos on.
Yeah, no, that's true. You can totally get a used car. They're really sturdy too. Actually, the M6. I was walking down my street, and this guy was in his car. And he was doing some crazy thing. He literally almost hit me with his car, but it hit the Leica M6 off my shoulder, and it like landed on the roof of his car, and then landed on the street, and it was totally fine.
Wow.
Totally
holy fuck!
Elbow
my Sony would
broken,
be dead, dude.
Right? Like, you take that Sony in the rain too.
KO'd. Well, actually, I was shooting in the rain when I was in Europe last year. Like, I had my gimbal out every time we had a stop during the day, and I would be like shooting in the rain. And it was actually not too bad. But I remember you telling me about your friend in Japan and how that rainy day, his completely fogged up and like was not working.
Not responsive. Yep, just like glitching.
Yeah. If I remember right, B, I think you had one of your cameras damaged just from someone knocking it over at a show, right?
Yeah, it was after the show at like fucking 2 or 3 a.m. I had knocked into it, backing up away from this person a little bit, you know.
Oh my god!
And I was like, "Fuck!" And then the Sony like landed right where the screen was on the back of the camera.
Ooh.
But like the screen wasn't broken, but when I tried to turn on the camera, it was not working, and I was like, "Fuck!" Like you know. But I had a warranty on it. So luckily I was able to send my camera in to get repaired, and I got repaired for free, but it took like a few weeks, and I had like fucking 6 shoots to do. And
I remember that week. A lot of venting towards me.
I was like, fuck, you know, but and I was like, man, how much would it cost to rent the Sony out? Because I could still use my lenses, right? Just a body that I didn't have anymore. And I was like looking at how much it would cost at Sammy's. And then I was like, what if I just bought it at Best Buy and returned the body, you know? Like, so I did that because they have a 15% cancellation policy, and I checked how much it would be for Sony, and it was less than the amount that I would have had to pay for the body at Sammy's. So I made sure that when I was shooting with the Best Buy camera body, that not to like do anything, like I cannot drop this, cannot bang this against anything. I was able to do everything I needed to do, and then I returned it and paid the cancellation policy fee, and was like, all right, somehow got away with that one. Nice, you know.
What a blessing.
Yeah.
Do you all have insurance on your gear, or are you just kind of leaving it up to fate like me?
Yeah. Speaking of which, we had a pretty recent scare with the workspace that we're currently renting out right now. We follow another artist who's down in the hallways. He was posting that there was the sprinklers went off on our floor, and he was just sharing pictures of, luckily, that his space wasn't damaged, but there was water. And my immediate thought in my head was like, if our place is soaked, like we have not insured anything in there, and like Don brought in like a whole Mac screen that we use to edit a lot of photos on. That was like the first on my mind that like, damn, maybe we should consider insurance. But here we are afterwards. Everything was fine, and we still don't have insurance.
So grateful. I'm so glad.
Well, we don't keep all like our laptops or camera gear. Like none of that is in the space itself. It's really just IKEA furniture, a whiteboard, and like a couple of things. You know, probably the biggest asset in that office right now is the monitor that Don brought in. But other than that, it's okay. I feel like we probably should try to insure our equipment. I think my warranty
through your
is
business. I think through your business, if it's like an established, you can do that.
We need a business license first too, though.
Yeah,
I don't want yet.
I was just saying,
you don't necessarily have to have a business license, so you can have like insurance on it still.
Yeah.
Yeah, like renter's insurance. That's another good one I hear about.
Is that something that comes up when you rent something and you kind of like...
I don't know. Honestly, I think it's just called renter's insurance. Yeah, and you just like, it insures things at your property.
Okay.
And it's not expensive, but it's like $100 or so. It's not really expensive, but you got to do the work in terms of putting in all your serial information and that stuff to make sure that your equipment is like A-okay'd.
Yeah. It's always a tricky subject when it comes down to being proactive about taking care of our equipment. Yeah.
I mean, hey, we're in coronavirus right now. Who was proactive about any of this stuff? Like, come on. None of us are proactive as humans. We have to like really get out of our own ways and, just it's all about getting out of your way, I guess.
Speaking of coronavirus, how have you and your husband kind of like been adjusting to it, and like what are you guys doing in the meantime to kind of like... It's hard. We don't have any gigs right now, as no one's hiring photographers. So I'm really grateful that the part-time job that I had, I was involved in, they are giving me a few hours a week to work, which is great. I'm doing some back-end analysis on sales reports. Whoa. So it's definitely not creative. I spent a long time looking at Excel sheets the other week, but I was like, I need to be able to survive somehow. That's so true.
So, but at the same time, we're not stopping our creative process. Like we're continuing to take photos. Like I go on these walks with my sister every day, always take my camera. You never know what you're going to get. Starting to make use of our home space more, and just like, it's a weird thing right now where we're not getting gigs and jobs, but nobody is, and so it's kind of this golden time right now to hone in on things you want to change about yourself or do better, amp up your skill level. Like there's never been a better time to really focus on this stuff. That's so true. It's been weird, but I know it's temporary, and I know it's not going to last forever.
It brought up a very interesting topic on like how we're going to manage our space in the meantime, just given like our current situation. You said you guys had like a storefront. Is this an additional place you guys rent out also?
Yeah, we rented out downtown LA. And we're definitely getting to that point where we're going to have to talk to our leasing agent and see what kind of things that they're going to be lenient, if they have any leniency that they can offer us during this weird time. I think it's like residents, like if you're a resident and you're renting, you shouldn't really get evicted, but it might be different for businesses. So I'm not sure what the grace period is, but I know we do need to have that hard conversation with our leasing agent and see like if they could defer payments for a little bit or come up with kind of like a payback plan. Once we get back on and we can open shop, because right now
you guys like literally just opened
it. I know.
Like you guys just like gutted the fuck out of that like space, and then just got it to where you want it to look like, and then just got that display up, and
it's okay. I mean, it still feels like a home spot. I don't think we've lost it yet, and so we're just really honestly working right now, trying to get another contract landed to do some more work, production work, when people are ready. Like, now's the time to be having those conversations with people and showing that you're available and that you're ready and willing, so that when they're ready to move forward, they know who to call and things are good to go.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah, definitely don't be dropping conversations right now. Keep those going. Keep reaching out to clients too. Just let them know that you're available, because there's like you could still do product shots right now. You could definitely do product shots. You could probably do lifestyle shots if you are living with another person and you just need their legs for shoes or something. There's still a lot that you can do. People, companies can send you products through the mail. That's totally fine for you to shoot. So there's avenues still as a photographer. It's just that those jobs are few, and definitely a lot of people are looking for those right now. So the competition is high.
Dang, that's a lot to think about. Because this just taking it back a little bit. Like, again, like I really want to entertain the idea of like the four of us kind of being like a one-stop shop. And I think like we had this idea of how we could enhance artists that we like, that have like the budget where we could kind of like sharpen up their branding, create decks for them in the meantime that they could use when they're like selling themselves in the meantime.
Definitely.
Definitely.
That's a really great idea, because like the four of you, like, Bee's got her film background and her dope ass editing skills. Like, you guys all have your traits, with like graphics design and all this stuff, and you're not sleeping right now. You're just waiting. And so I think it's a great time to be reaching out, and I'm sure there's a lot of like influencers out there who need the help at the moment and who have the funds and the money to be.
That's what I'm worried about right now, though. Like, do these influencers and creators have money? Like the ground floor just dropped out, right? Like, there's no events, so there's like, what is there to promote other than their actual, like, if we have music and their actual music? I don't know. It's a lot to think about right now. Just like,
or maybe brand
budgets for things. I think brands probably.
It seems like at least for the trend right now, everyone's moving into live stream, right? There can be potential.
That's how we're doing it right now.
Hey, in our defense, we've been doing this.
Yeah, we've been doing this.
But
we're also in
I remember
watching
Dan edit photos once.
Oh, no way. I'm so boring.
No, it was really interesting. I think you were editing Don's hat, and you like changed it from like a gray to a blue or something. That was super cool. Or like from blue to gray.
Yeah.
It was really fun.
I do recall that, actually.
Our memory is so on point.
It's interesting stuff.
Yeah, this live stream format, like since the four of us also, we pay attention a lot to the music industry, that we're seeing like all these musicians create like new ways of like showing that they're still there, and for lack of better words, also kind of using this opportunity to kind of like, now that everyone is gonna be paying attention, that they actually do go on like Instagram Live and everything, Twitch.
I mean, I've been tuning into way more live streams and actually finding a lot of great information, and I think it's cool. I think this is the personality coming out of these companies now. It's falling back on the people that run the companies, and they're having to step up. I mean, it goes even to like SNL. Like Saturday Night Live. They all did from their home, brought, you know,
I remember
it's
that.
Saturday Night Live. It was so good. And so I think if you could just stay aware that, you know, these times are changing, and to be creative and to still have fun with it, like that's the whole point of what we do is we love it. You know, you gotta have you gotta be dedicated, but you gotta really enjoy it too. And it's tough. Yeah. It's really, really hard now, but I think that, like, if you keep working on fine-tuning you guys as a company, your strengths, allocating kind of like a game plan, you know, where you guys want to see yourselves, so that when the doors open back up to the world, you guys have a plan and you guys are ready to conquer.
Actually,
I think we're like.
Oh, go ahead.
No, we're gonna.
I was gonna say, if you can give advice for yourself, like 2 years ago when you guys were first starting, is there some gems you can maybe bless us with on maybe like how to avoid potential problems that you guys came across, or a mentality? What's something you would tell yourself 2 years ago?
2 years ago, there's so much can happen in 2 years, right? Yeah. So we can start with that. But advice that I wish I knew, that there's already establishments out there doing very similar work to what you probably want to be doing. And it would be in your best interest to make friends with these establishments and to get to know them on a very personal level. So find other magazines that are similar to yours, get to know who's running them, find other, if you guys are into this realm of like art therapy, find some establishments that are for art therapy and get to know them, because you guys are vibing in a similar way. That way, because you guys are entering as this company into this realm, you want to see who else are players that you want to have on your team. It's all about networking, right? Like, this is something I wish I knew when I was in high school. It's all about who you know. So get out there and introduce yourself as Nüfly magazine, and try to make those connections with either people that carry magazines at their stores, coffee shops. You guys like music, so go the music realm. If there's ways that your magazine can be incorporated somehow musically through events and venues, and get to know these venues so that they know who you are, and you can just make that quick call when this idea pops up that could be a cool marriage between the two of you. Because it's like almost like, I guess you have this vision and you want it to be a certain way, but there's like so many other beautiful things that can happen along the way of getting to that vision. And so don't deny yourself of exploring what comes up as you are getting to that ultimate goal. Because sometimes you might need to sidetrack, and you're like, actually, we can just do a pop-up installation here one day. You know, instead of try to make, and don't complicate yourselves either. That's another advice.
Well said. Very
really
well said.
The easier you can get things done, the better. Just work smarter, not harder.
Yes.
I think I heard Don say that. I think Don has that tattooed.
Do you really? Work smarter, not harder? You better, you're gonna get it.
Yeah, I think that's why we're trying to do these smaller projects too, you know? Like, I think I'm looking at our merch as care packages for people, you know? Like, even with these candles, right? It offers some sort of relief. Like, it should feel like, oh, like a really good friend of mine just packaged this for me, you know? Like, they put a lot of thought and care into it. And I think that, you know, it's the magazine in itself is almost like a care package too. Like, this is what really holds close to our hearts, and like, you know, I think that this might comfort you as well, you know, like depending on who it is. And yeah, I think we're right now at the point of like, okay, we also need to grow our community, right? Like this magazine can't just be for us, you know, it has to also be able to reach other people, and it can connect other people together to what we're trying to do too, and then to find the same frequencies that feel right for everybody.
Yeah. Going back to what you're saying, my husband calls our magazine a love letter to photography, and your magazine is like this place for artists. It's this, and you said the word, it just blanks on me now, but it's a way to reach and connect to artists, and as therapy. And I think that right there is kind of your current that's running through and keeping you guys all together, and why you're all into this. And that's beautiful. Definitely keep that going. Maybe write that somewhere on the wall, just to like remind yourselves, like, the reason why you got into this in the first place is to help other artists and to connect out there, and because you guys know what it's like to struggle as an artist, and you wish something like this exists so you can kind of tap into and learn. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah,
Very
like sharing
well
other
said.
people's stories and our own stories, stories that would be untold if we didn't give it the outlet that it needed.
A strong approach or underlying theme for our magazine is that, for me personally, I've noticed that when I'm kind of going through a lot of these beautiful magazines that I own, a lot of them are kind of like highlights of other people. Although some of them do also talk about more, kind of dive into like more serious subjects. It just felt always like someone else's story. What I kind of told the team a lot was that we have an opportunity to create a magazine that can feel like a supportive friend. Like we have this idea of, as you're kind of flipping through the pages, certain pages will have kind of like supportive messages kind of coming through, like for example, like, oh, like you got this, or like, oh, dream baby dream, like just encouraging words that are really random, that hopefully when you come across, it'll hit you at the right time and kind of like encourage you to keep doing, because like you said, we know what it's like to struggle.
Yeah, that plays into your subconscious too. You're just seeing these positive words, and maybe your active brain is not paying attention, but it's feeding that subconscious mind, and for some reason you have no idea why you pick up the magazine, you just feel better afterwards, and that's super cool.
Out of curiosity, do you have any magazines that you personally really like, or any art books that you'd maybe like to mention?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I mean, I need to get more photography books, like,
yes,
for sure.
Same.
I've been trying. My husband's better at collecting them than I am, and so like, just my favorite books are based off of photographers. So like the Henry Bresson, his giant ass book. It's all about the decisive moment. I'll show you right here.
Yeah. That's a nice space of work.
In terms of publications, it's right here. This is kind of like a go-to book for photography.
It's massive.
Yeah, it's really big, and he's like the father of street photography. So this like really, really big book. So I really like books.
Was that just a cardboard sleeve you pulled this book out of? Damn.
Holy shit, I didn't even realize that. Wow.
This is a giant cardboard sleeve.
Wow.
This book. But so I remember Street Dreams was like a big magazine that was out for a while, and I really liked them. I thought they were cool. I don't really keep up with them anymore, or I don't know what they're doing at the moment.
Street Dreams.
What was that?
Yeah.
What was that, Cass?
Street Dreams.
What?
Riza was in Street Dreams.
Oh. Our
Riza
donee.
Oh shit.
Oh, nice. Dang.
I didn't know that.
That I like that one. There's this other. It was small. It was like a zine. Zine. And it was called Light and Photography, and it basically was a monthly print only thing that they mailed to you, and you, as like a community, you could apply to, like, you submit photos or poetry, and then it was like a collective from the community of submissions. So that was cool, but I think they stopped that like last month. I think that kind of fizzled out.
Phased out, yeah.
It's hard. Yeah, it's kind of hard to keep that going.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess those two, like Street Dreams and then that light and photography one. But honestly, I don't know of many that are around. Like Nat Geo, National Geographic. So we subscribe to that.
Oh, yeah, you can't forget about Nat Geo.
I haven't paid. I don't know who's doing this. It must be my dad, because I have not, like, I subscribed to Nat Geo and then I got that letter that was like, this is your last and final issue. If you want to renew, send us a check. And I never sent a check, but I still get Nat Geo issues every single month. So whatever Nat Geo got is out there. Thank you. Because we do definitely read those magazines.
I recently saw Nat Geo mentioned on Hypebeast because apparently Nat Geo tapped in this company from Hong Kong to develop a full merch line of techwear with Nat Geo branding on it, and it's arguably pretty cool to look at. Like you have like weatherproof jackets, vests,
like uniforms.
Yeah, that
so
that has
cool.
Nat Geo branding. Like you got the yellow like rectangle right in the middle of your chest. I'm like, that's pretty dope.
That's wild. I'd be down for something like that.
For sure.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
What?
Sorry. I was wondering, like, how you guys choose content as a magazine.
Ooh.
Like, say that pieces you guys all contribute. Like, how do you guys sift through and choose like what goes on the magazine? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. So we start with the city, and then all of us do our homework. All of us basically spend like a good week to 2 weeks just researching photographers that we can find in that city, and then from those we all kind of pick our favorites. So like I had a couple favorites from this last LA one that I found. We basically try to fit a roster of 8 photographers, and it's kind of like first come first serve, because we know we can always go back to a city, right? So first come first serve in terms of who we picked. We don't really accept any applications or submissions, which is kind of fun, because then we can curate and really control the process. Right. So it's like, let's say this last issue, we were trying to do LA. We've done it twice already, so this is the 3rd time around. So we really concentrated on photographers that have paved the way for photography in this city. It comes down to who we want to contact, and then also who's available. We've definitely reached out to people that we couldn't get in our magazine. For example, I don't know if you guys know Cole Younger. He was like a big LA photographer who passed away.
I think I saw that.
Yeah,
he was young. Right?
He was young. Yeah.
He was suicide?
No, he I think it was like a really bad they have bad alcohol in Indonesia, and I know that. I grew up there. I think he was unfortunate to experience a case of alcohol that wasn't really alcohol. If I could remember the article that came out from there, it was very, honestly, we didn't know what happened, to be honest, here in LA, because there was a lot of like speculation, but we did find an article that explained that he had passed due to alcohol poisoning. And then I just know that in Indonesia, there's this thing called methanol, which is different from ethanol. And it's very, very dangerous. They replace it in alcohol. It can look exactly like an absolute vodka bottle, but it's not absolute vodka. So it's very dangerous out there. And if you don't know, you can get really hurt. And so I think that's unfortunate. That's what happened. So we really wanted to celebrate his photography and his legacy in our last LA issue. But we just had a really hard time connecting with the family, finding the right images and the right words to do. So that's definitely on our burner list, that we'd love to feature him one day and do a proper kind of like a memorial style feature for him, because I don't think anything was done in LA to commemorate this amazing guy who used to really influence a lot of us.
I guess, like, say that there's certain images from a certain photographer. Like, how do you guys pick like the ones that you're gonna put inside the magazine?
Yeah, so we allow freedom from the photographers, actually. So we'll tell them like, hey, we really like this style of work. Could you send a collection of like 10 to 15 images that we could then boil down? Ideally, we would love to look through their whole library, right? But we pick a focus. So Melanie Pullen, she was in our last magazine. She's more of a studio photographer. Her style is fashion, high crime fashion scenes. So it's not street photography at all. It's not documentary photography. Her style is to take a model, make it look like they just hung themselves and she's wearing really cool Versace. So that's her style, and it's what kind of got her on the map of the photography world. But alongside of that, she also had these series of images that were all about her going out late at night, finding these men and giving them $20 to take off their shirt and tell her a story.
Wow.
So, and it goes back to her childhood. She couldn't sleep. There would be a man who'd come outside her window. So this was like a series of photographs that was very unlike her normal, what she's used to. But I had contacted her and asked like, hey, we normally do documentary photos. I know your photo work doesn't portray that. Do you actually have images that you want to share that could relate? So a lot of photographers, especially because this last issue had like really well-known photographers, they have a huge collection, and they were basically like, what do you want? What do you need?
Right. Is there like pushback on your guys' end?
What's that?
Is there like pushback on your guys' end? Like,
yeah, actually, so definitely. So Suzanne Stein, she is a New York-based photographer, but she shot a lot here in LA. And she sent us basically her whole like Dropbox folder of images for us to sift through. So we picked like our favorite 10, and then there was definitely pushback. She was like, actually, I don't like that image. There was like an image of a lady standing really small by herself near a big blue wall with like a lot of flowers. And we liked it because it showed like isolation, LA, the juxtaposition between like gentrification and, being homeless. But she didn't like it because she didn't think that represented LA how she saw it. So she had,
even though she took the photo,
even though she took the photo, it wasn't her favorite representation of LA. So we definitely had to go back and forth and be like, okay, which images did you really feel as an artist define who you are in LA? And I had to respect that, because in the end, I really liked the images that she picked. So we did kind of like half and half, where she liked half of the ones we picked and then didn't like half of the ones we picked. And we are very open, completely open to what the artists want to put as the final image. Like, I'm not about to have a war or say you can't put that image in there, or we'd rather have this one, like, because who am I to say? Like, I'm just so blessed that they want to be a part of the magazine and they allow us to curate their images.
That's pretty crazy. I don't think we're in that same like thought structure though, because what you guys are doing, you guys are curating photographers in other cities or within your own city, right? But for us, we're like trying to put in editorials, we're trying to put in interviews, like it's a different kind of selection process with that.
So there's a lot of freedom to that, right? Because it's so expanded and open-ended, you can then really maybe come up with like themes. So maybe like we're playing around the theme of coronavirus, right? Isolation being the theme of a magazine issue, for example. Who are some people out there that are doing some really cool blog posts about, making cool things out of macaroni, just like people, like you almost have to, I guess, some advice for you guys in the structure of your magazine and what you guys are looking for in being relevant and topical. you almost always have to be checking posts and tags and seeing who's producing something that you find inspiring that you could then see if they've got the potential to add to your magazine. And you have to be the gatekeepers in noticing when or if not this person has potential, because they could be very interested in being a part of the magazine, and as a human being you're like, yeah, I like this connection, but actually they're not going to add the value that you're looking for the magazine. That can be a pretty tough conversation. So it's about not over promising and more figuring out what are the key strengths of this person and seeing if that is something you really want to explore further, or if you're like, okay, maybe not now, maybe in the future, that kind of thing. Because over promising is like the worst thing in the world. You want to be true to your word.
Yeah, I think how we're approaching these volumes, not issues, sorry, I keep forgetting we're doing volumes here, is we're trying to do more timeless content, right? So it actually gave, but what you just said about maybe doing something on isolation, because we do want to do like little 40-page zines, you know, to kind of lead up to volumes like those. I feel like that might be, you know, a good time capsule. Like we could do something that's more like what we're currently going through, like that's like a little time capsule like that, like the zines that we do, like the 40-page zines, like that could be like a time capsule, and then the book itself could be a volume that's timeless, you know. Because like when you're thinking of more like timeless topics, like right now I'm currently, or I pretty much finished writing this editorial called "I'm Not Happy but My Life Is Dope," and it kind of explores like me doing ayahuasca down in the Amazon, and you know, coming back from that and then having kind of like a little PTSD. I feel like we've talked about this before too.
Yeah,
I kind of like,
it's hard coming back.
Yeah. And then I kind of basically journaled about the experience and how that's affected my relationships with other people. And like, you know, if you look at my IG right now, it's kind of like a highlights reel, right? So what I'm doing is I'm kind of diving more into my psyche and then giving people like an inside look into how my mind actually works. And then, you know, it's like underneath the surface, right? Like you can see a little tip of the iceberg, and then here's like the rest of the iceberg right here. I have like a couple of editorials I'm sitting on right now too from other people, but it's more like, you know, a deeper look into somebody's humanity. And so that's kind of how we're curating these editorials and how I'm approaching curating it. And then Dan's like got his photo series going on, and then we have like a few other things. So I don't think that's like, you know, the selection process. It's just really how we curate, you know, these themes, right?
Yeah. That makes sense. And don't be afraid to be producing things right now, even if you're not sure if it's going to be something that you'll continue producing 4 or 5 months from now or a year from now. Recognize that this is really early stages of your team, and there's going to be a lot of changes and growths and stuff. So like, you know, don't get, I guess, too attached or married to how certain things should be moving forward. Because I mean, like we gotta take our stubbornness out of things sometimes, you know.
So true. Amen to that.
And
we had a whole fight over like the candle name for the caravan last weekend. Yeah, we just finished our Twitch stream, and then they wanted to talk about the name, and I wasn't really feeling the name, and we were kind of like clashing a little bit. And I had to figure out how to find like a happy medium, right? Like I had to basically switch on my whole thought process. And what I concluded was like we were too obsessed with the name, but like when you get the candle, you should feel like you got it from a friend, right? So like my thought was like, okay, maybe we can change it to, you know, if you were having a problem and you're telling that problem to your friend, like what would that friend say to you in return, right? And I was thinking maybe they would say like, you'll be okay, like you'll be fine, you know, like little mantras almost. And then I brought that into the team meeting the next day, and we were just kind of going back and forth. They were like, actually kind of like that approach a little bit better. And then Dan came up with like, what if the candle name was "You Got This," you know, like if you got a candle that said like "You Got This" instead of like we had another word, you know. But we didn't want it to be like just a generic. It shouldn't feel like like we're not a candle company, right? So it doesn't have to be like an official kind of looking name. Like we can name it whatever we want, you know, and it should give some kind of narrative into our voice. So we're like, okay, maybe it should be You Got This. And so Dan like made all these labels, and we're like getting the stickers back, and we're waiting for our order to come in. And you know, it's just like about doing shit like that, right? Like, because I had my own word that I was like, oh, maybe this will be better than your word. And then I was like, you know what? Forget these words. Like, we need a fucking line instead. You know? Like, we have to just keep shifting and like being open to a better idea. You know, because like it's all about us going as hard as we possibly can, and not being just stuck on like an old idea and like the best idea. You know, that's the goal.
Right. Right. I want to be mindful of our time too.
We totally didn't go into your editing though.
No, it's totally okay. I'm so boring to watch, and I'm sure our viewers are tired of seeing me.
Can we get like a 5-minute preview of this? Like, Jenae, I would love for you to kind of just take a look into Dan's mind, because kind of want to look through these Miles photos too a little bit.
Right.
I know we're about coming up, but just a few minutes.
Okay.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Come on, Dan.
Okay, we'll run one quick photo edit.
That drop top.
And then and then afterwards I want to give some time for Jenae to kind of plug the viewers, like what she's up to, and just kind of like have her let the people know how they could follow her in the future too. How's that sound?
First up, let's do it.
Okay. All right. Man, getting camera shy now.
You've been on camera for 3 hours. How are you camera shy?
I was talking into a void last time, but okay, let's do this.
To a void. Oh, okay.
Let's do this. I'm pulling it up right now. Okay, let me just.
That's awesome.
Nah, dude.
Dan's the shit.
Don't. Okay.
Hey,
here we
I know
are.
that guy.
I think I know this guy.
I think
you know.
One moment. Let me just toggle our OBS real quick.
Whoa.
Okay. All right. So this was a recent photo shoot we had with Miles. Already what we were looking at. So my general process first is that I will I'll do color grading first before I do any like full fine tuning. So what color grading means. So here we are in Capture One, pretty similar to Lightroom, except like I have everything on the right over here when it comes down to like the film roll. All the editing happens on these tabs over here to the left. For example, we have our white balance over here, our color balance, and what I was mentioning about earlier about these layers was that you can toggle specific masks. And what I mean by that, let me show you guys real quick. So if I do a new filled layer, let's say for example I want to boost up the shadows from maybe his around the crotch region. Let's just say for example it was a little too dark in that area, right? So I'll go into the shadows over here and I'll kick up the shadows, but as you can see over here it's affecting the entire image. So what I could do over here, so I'm gonna hit M to reveal the mask. Anything that's red over here, Capture One's letting you know that all this area that's in red is being affected by whatever you're doing over here with your toggling. So what I would do here is I would clear my mask, go into the brush tool, and then by right clicking we could toggle the size of my brush, also the flow of my brush, and also the edges in terms of how soft this effect's going to happen. And so we're just mentioning the crouch area first. So if I just brush over here, you could see over here that it's red, letting you know that this area is being affected by that shadow I just did. Now it's overcooked obviously, so there's actually a little bar over here allowing you to toggle the opacity of how much you've done onto that specific layer. So for this one in context, I'll definitely lower it a lot more. But that's an example of how I do how the layers operate. What I normally do with the first layer is I fix my exposure settings. So if I hold Option, I can toggle how it looks like when when it was straight out of camera. It looked like this. Pretty good. I like it how it's flat, because when it's flat you have more playroom. You could shape light in this context. And so what I did initially was I brightened up the exposure, I played with the contrast, I lowered the highlights. I personally like retaining a lot of details when it comes down to how the photos look at the end. Like, for example, like all these little like lines on the beanies sometimes can tend to get blown out when a photo when like the strobe light's being flashed on it. So I, more so than often, you'll see my highlights when I'm editing all the way at like 0. I don't like anything being overblown. And if I want to change that later, I do that in Photoshop. So the second thing I was telling you about, which I really liked about Capture One, was the skin. I will show you how I approach this part with a layer. So just for an example, I'll say skin 2. I'll name that just to keep my layers organized. I am trying to delete this. Okay. So now that I'm on the skin 2 layer, I'm gonna go ahead and go over to our color adjustments tab. And over here on the color editor, there's this advanced skin tone. I'm gonna grab the dropper, and over here I could select, so over here I see kind of like variances in the skin tone. What I need to do right now is tell Capture One, hey, this color I'm about to select is the one I want the majority of the colors to look like. So I think usually around like the cheekbone here looks pretty good. So I'm gonna grab that color. So over here, this Luma circle allows you, Capture One tells you like, hey, of all these colors over here, that little point over here is what you just selected, and everything around that color is covered in the spectrum. So what I usually do over here at this point is I'll just increase my range, and down at this uniformity area down on this bottom left, this allows me to toggle how much of this color do I want other colors around the spectrum to come closer to that dot, right? So what that means, how you're gonna see that is like if I increase the hue over here, it's pretty subtle. Let me see if I could toggle it on and off so you can see what's going on. And why you can't see it is because this does not have a mask. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill this mask. There you go. You can see like a large variant in, so just after, before, after, before. So this is definitely overcooked. But it was just an example. So I normally keep the hue.
Beautiful subtlety.
Thank you. I usually keep the hue like pretty low. I brighten the lightness just a bit, just to fill in and open up the shadows a little bit. And you could see over here, because my spectrum is kind of covering into the yellows, it's affecting the shirt also. The whole idea for this photo shoot, we wanted to go with a very neutral toned, earth toned kind of palette. So how I do control that is I'm gonna hit M to reveal my mask, and I'm gonna clear it. And instead this time, this is a part Belinda thinks is really weird how it looks like. I actually brush on specifically over the skin tone. Any skin tone areas I see on my subject, which is usually always the face, but sometimes the hands in there too. So exactly, yeah. So over here we can see that there's hands over here too. I have to be very conscious to make sure I'm affecting all visible skin. So I'll just quickly kind of go across this. Of course, I usually take my time a little bit when I'm not live streaming this, but just for the sake, I'm gonna go on this really quickly. Just covering the skin tone areas. Okay, I'm gonna turn off. Huh? You said get it? So just to show how it looks like before and after. Here it is off. Yeah, I'm gonna go into the face a little bit. Here it is off, and then here it is on. Very subtle, but you could see how some of the redness in the skin area, especially closer towards his nose with it on, it's a little more balanced out. One thing I do have to pay attention to is that I do not want his lips to look like his skin. That would look really unnatural. So I'll clear the mask over here. And around the mustache, it's a little forgiving because it's a black area. So yeah, when I'm like this and Belinda looks at my screen, she's like, "What are you doing?" So that's kind of what's going on how it looks like over here. But when I turn off, when I toggle the mask, it goes away. But just that, here's the before, and then here's the after. Super subtle. The next part over here, I go into fine tuning in Photoshop. So let's do that. I'm gonna go ahead and right click over here. I'm gonna go edit with, and I'm gonna hit Photoshop. What's cool about Capture One is that when you're migrating it between two softwares, you're actually creating a new file. So why I choose TIFF rather than JPEG, when you go into JPEG, with TIFF, I just know this option comes up where like it check marks uncompressed, and personally for me, that is something I am trying to be very conscious of, where I do not compress anything during my editing process. So I keep it at 16-bit color channels, uncompressed, sRGB resolution. I do it personally because I'm anticipating these are going to be printed. I do it above 300. Why specifically 326 was that I've been told that the iPhone screen retina resolution is 326 dpi. So whenever I export photos, I export it at 326 dpi. And as you can see on our Nüfly Instagram page, like the photos come out really crispy, which I personally really like. Yeah. So I'm gonna hit OK. This is gonna open up Photoshop. Luckily I do this a lot so I could breeze through this. Okay. Here we are in Playland. Okay, so in Photoshop, first things first, I have these actions that I downloaded online that I use really frequently. The first step I do is frequency separation. I'm sure you heard of this before, Jenae, but if you haven't, frequency separation is a method where it's an action right now, but you could still do it separately. But if I hit play on the action, what this does is that it separates the textured layer from the colors under it, allowing me to adjust colors that will not affect textures, or vice versa. I can adjust colors without affecting texture on top. And when we're talking about texture, it's like these kind of pores on top that I do want to maintain in the meantime too. So what I normally do, first and foremost, after playing, I have my two separate layers, the texture and the skin underwards. I work on skin first. So I'm going to hide my texture, and ultimately the skin is just a Gaussian blurred layer. And on top of this, it's just, it's like a high pass texture layer on top. So when I edit each, it does not affect the other one. So normally for this, skin blemishes, I do clean up. I know this can vary amongst photographers, but I like balancing the skin, but maintaining its integrity in the meantime, but not overdoing it too much, just kind of evening out skin tones. A lot of what I think of when I'm editing in my head is, as a photo editor, it's our kind of job to help the viewer look at what we want them to look at. We have control over that, and if we can control them to not look at a distraction that's maybe like a pimple on their face, or like notice a small little dust on like their on their shirt, I think that's kind of our job to help aid the viewer by kind of like removing it or cleaning up as natural as possible. So what I'm doing over here.
What tool are you using?
Oh, so this right here is the patch tool.
Spot healing?
No, patch tool. Patch tool. The three of these do the same thing fundamentally.
Okay.
The spot healing tool, it's kind of like the clone stamp, where you have to hold Alt and then you can like select the sample area, and it will kind of just like patch it with like nearby elements and make its best kind of call. Why I personally like the patch tool is that I could get a little more specific on which area, and I could also, so what I'm doing is telling Photoshop like, hey, this area I'm noticing imperfection, right? I'm seeing a lighter area over here, and this area is darker around it. So what I say is like, okay, in my head, I know I want it to be this kind of light tone because this is where all the highlights are generally hitting on his cheekbone. So I'm gonna grab the more darker areas and kind of drag it over into the light and kind of let Photoshop take its jab at doing it. And so by just kind of doing this repeatedly, you kind of fix the blemishes and kind of help create some like a more I say this a lot. I like enhancing features. If they have like your jaw lines, I like bringing that out. If they have like really nice eyebrows, I like darken that so you could just kind of see like a more kind of like main feature that you would normally see on their face on just a more like enhanced kind of level. So just going over here a little more. I think we're coming close to it. Alright, so this little part is balancing out the skin tones. Okay, I think we're coming close to it. Alright, so if there's a general large area over here that I think just has like a lot of variances, what I can do is just kind of grab the lasso tool, select this overarching area, go into filter, blur, Gaussian blur. I don't do anything above. I try to keep it below 5. Just do it really subtle. By blurring it, you're kind of like, it's kind of like when you're painting, you're kind of like mixing the colors together by using the Gaussian blur, just allowing the transitions between variances to look a lot more smoother. So I just did that 2%, and yeah, that to me looks good. So I'm gonna go into the texture. So the texture I'm gonna keep. But these small little parts over here, I'm gonna help clean up for our model. Personally for me, like if I see it, I believe the viewer will see it too. So I try to have as little distracting elements as possible, just these small little ones. But I'll keep the skin as is. I don't see any pimples, so that's good. Cool. Alright, so moving on to the hands. You can never forget the hands. Just double checking, doing a quick skim. I've seen a lot of dirty nails before. I've seen a lot of kind of like scratches or cut marks on people's hands. So just be sure to double check that too as you're kind of combing through. Yeah,
his bracelets are lit. I didn't even notice that.
I know.
It's so subtle. Yeah, it's pretty fire.
It is super fire. Okay,
Nice.
so that's it for at least the skin retouching. The next step that
It's
I
so
do,
subtle, like you can still see all the texture on his face.
yeah, here, let me show it before and after. So here's the before. What my eyes are landing on are these kind of imperfections on his cheek. Just kind of like the natural kind of eyeshadows that happen under people that make them look tired. I usually try to take that out too. And yeah, just these small little blemishes on the skins up here, my eyes are catching. So when we turn it with the edits on, so here it is with it on. So we took care of.
Can you toggle again a couple times?
Yeah, I'll keep doing it on.
So that's before and that's after. Okay.
This is before.
Yeah.
And this is after.
It's super subtle.
Right. It's ultimately just removing, clearing up some of the blemishes, taking off skin damages that will be gone in 2 weeks, and staying very disciplined about not going too hard with the skin clearing, because we all know how fun that could look at the end and how unnatural that could look at the end too. And I got some pushback sometimes from like some some of my clients where they're like, oh, I think you overcooked it a little bit, and then I'll go back into it and like redo it again. So I found this happy medium right now to maintain the textures as much as I can, but then I can adjust the skin colors underwards, because everyone wants a balanced face. But when it comes down to like textures, like I personally have like a lot of like moles on my face that it'd be weird if a photographer came back to me and like all my moles are gone, because that's part of who I am. I've come to accept that. Yeah. All right, so moving on, next part, I do dodge and burning. I think this is a crucial part since all my pictures were originally, when I kind of do the color grading on Capture One, I try to keep it as flat as possible. And what I do in Photoshop is actually deepen specific areas and brighten specific areas with the intention of having the viewer look at what I want the first time around, like specifically. And in this case, my eyes kind of land on this area, right? Just around his face. So what I'm going to do in the meantime is kind of sculpt the light around his face. So with my opacity at 100%, my flow at 3%, just to keep things really subtle and controllable, I like starting off with the eyebrows. So just brushing that in the meantime. I'm going to show you before and afters also again, but it's really subtle. I like kind of deepening the eyelashes a bit, just to add some depth. And then next thing I do is if they're wearing a hat or if they have like a hairline that I'm seeing, I usually try to deepen that too, just to create some contrast when you're looking at this person's face. And next part, shaping out over here in the back, around the jawline. Let's go ahead and deepen a little bit on his mustache. Okay, and when it's hair, I usually like darkening a lot more. Okay, I think I overcooked it a little bit. But the great thing about that is that you have your opacity over here for this layer, which you can slightly lower just to open up why I overdone a little too much. Okay, next part is the cheekbones. So I brighten areas that are already kind of bright themselves and just kind of like dab with my strokes. So a little bit over here, a little bit over here. On cheekbones. There's a highlight also around the lips. Just gonna brighten that part. Brighten up the eyelids just a little bit, just to get people to looking at that. And I think the burn's a little too dark right now. Let me lower the opacity a bit. It's somewhere around there. Okay. Now, at first I was just looking at the face. Now I take a look at the whole picture as a whole. And then what I usually do too is I notice that my attention does go a lot to the clothes, which I want to be a secondary kind of detail. So with this burn tool, I'm going to go ahead and brush over his shirt. Just so that when I first look at this picture, I look at his face. And then you invite the viewer to continue looking at other places, but at least their first impression is like, okay, I'm looking at their face. And let me go ahead and darken this area just a little bit. Boom. Okay, so just before and afters with the dodge and burns. Let me put these in their own layer. So here's the before and here's the after. Very subtle changes, but as you could see around his face, like the lighting before, which is flat, afterwards becomes a little more defined over here.
Wow, that's so cool.
And so when you pull back far away, yeah, I really like it because my eyes knows what to look at, but if I wanted to like venture around, I could start paying attention to like now the fabric that's on his shirt becomes a lot more visible because I killed the highlights on this. His hands don't look disjointed because we maintained the same color consistency from his face to his hands. And there's shape into this photo too that just gives it a little more of a pop. So since that's done, I'm gonna go ahead and close this and save it. And my settings with the layer compression, I personally like smaller sized files, so I select this option down here where it's gonna save slower, but this file is smaller. Image compression, I'm gonna put to none. I'm gonna hit OK. This part takes a couple seconds.
That's really neat how you play with light in such subtlety, because it really draws where the eye goes.
Right. I think so too. I was kind of I thought about this process a lot when I was going through some lookbooks of my favorite fashion brands that I follow. One of them is like John Elliott. Their lookbooks are like, they're like storytelling in my opinion, and like I think the photographer who shoots on a phase 1 camera just like does it really tastefully. Okay, so I do not know. Okay, so I'm gonna right click. This is the one without the edits. I'm gonna hit set as compare just to lock it on the left side, and I think the new file is saved should be at the bottom right here. Okay, so there's our before and afters.
Oh, good.
That looks really nice.
Yeah. Thank you. So just for a little more of a preview too, I can go ahead and export this so we can look at how it looks like at the end. Output here. Nope. Okay, I'm gonna choose a folder. I'm gonna just put it into my disgustingly huge desktop right now. Says output folder.
How many screenshots you got
when Don and I are looking for inspo, dude, like I just fire off Command Shift 3 whenever I see something I really like. So yeah, I'm gonna hit process over here just to let Capture One do its thing. Go into my don't look. Oh, whatever. That's my desktop right now.
Holy shit.
Here it is.
I feel like our computers are an extension of our minds, right? Like it's everybody files things differently, keeps things in certain places, you know.
Yeah. So here it is, 100%. It's a lot more crispier than how it looks like in Capture One. I think it's because when we export it as TIFFs, it's no longer a Canon RAW file. But yeah, that's the general process, and I repeat this 50 plus more times for the rest of the photos. Any questions in the meantime?
No, it just makes me want to explore Photoshop for sure.
Yes. Let me know. Feel free to like ask if you want to like a link to the actions I had for these that I use for when I'm retouching. As you can see, there are some cannabis photos here, which are one of my clients right now that I'm doing product photography for. Yeah, so these these actions up here, I have like a dodge and burn action that I use and a frequency separation. Those are the two that I use the most.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've been taking notes, so cool.
Cool.
If you want a one-on-one with Dan one of these days, feel free to hit him up.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
I am like very nerdy when it comes down to approaches on editing processes. So I definitely do invite that if you want to talk further more on that and like share practices. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and wrap things up, guys. We spilled 30 minutes over our meeting.
Sorry about everybody's time.
So just a quick recap. We have Jenae here. She introduced to us how she came to where she is now. She shared with us some editing process and what she goes through to get her photos looking so amazing the way they are. We then spoke a lot about just general approaches on pretty much what it takes to operate a magazine nowadays in 2020. And then we went through a little quick editing session on how we do it in-house at Nüfly. So yeah, Jenae, like let the world know what you're up to right now. Let us know where people could find you in the meantime. The floor is yours.
For sure. Well, thank you guys so much for having me on. This was so fun to talk with each of you, and Nüfly is going places. So you guys continue working really hard. I'm just stoked to be here. So thank you for having me on and to talk about photography and the creative process. It's my favorite thing. I'm mostly on Instagram. I have a website, but Instagram's the best place to reach out to me and hit me up for anything. My name is spelled JenaeLien. A lot of vowels. So that's probably the best way if you want to reach out for any DMs or any questions. What I'm working on right now, These Streets magazine, trying to keep us going, seeing what other clients we can reach out to, and then just also working on my own creativity, every day, just getting up. I try to get up around 6:30 in the morning just to start my day and to maintain this mindset while we're in this really strange time and place. So just really working on myself and going through a lot of my old photos this is now a great time to go through your library and see what you could have, what brings new meaning. I feel like a lot of photos now, because we've shifted so much as humanity in this last month, that photos can sometimes stir up a whole new meaning that you never thought of before when you first took it. So that's been a really fun thing for me to be focused on.
Love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jenae. We will let you go. In the meantime,
we'll have to have you back on another day as well.
That'd be really fun.
Anytime. Thank you. You guys are the best. Really appreciate it. I'll keep that candle going. It's not gonna burn. I'm not gonna blow it out till it burns out. So I'll let you guys know when it goes down.
Oh, all the way down.
all the way down.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Seriously.
All right, Jenae, thank you so much. We're gonna go ahead and wrap up our stream in the meantime.
Okay.
Yeah. We're gonna go ahead and wrap up in the meantime, but you can stick around if you want while we say our goodbyes or our outros or. Yeah. Okay.
You guys do you. It was a pleasure.
You. Yes.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for your time, Jenae. Nice meeting you.
I'll talk to you soon. Okay. Bye.
Okay.
Bye. Dope. I think this format is really cool.
Yes.
Thank you, Don, for forcing me to wrap up quickly.
Sorry, I didn't.
No. It's totally okay. I just want to be respectful of everyone's time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're still on live stream right now. Let's go ahead and wrap up our live stream. Thank you guys for tuning in. Nüfly session 13. It is Saturday, April 18th. My name is Daniel. Follow me on Instagram or Twitter at DakFu. I'm gonna hand it over to Belinda right now to say her outro.
Okay. Yes. Thank you guys for sticking around and for tuning in to my friend's world a little bit. You can find me at _ZenRabbit on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, what have you. Yeah. Don?
Thanks guys for joining us. We had a great speaker today. You can find me at _UOP. Understand our process. Yeah.
What? I thought it was understanding our purpose or understand. What was it? UOP?
It could be everything. It could be everything. It's everything.
Okay.
All right, guys. Thanks to Janine and Dan during their process. It's Cas signing out with the team at Speak Proper. You can find that on all platforms. And have a good weekend.
That's Milo, by the way. Bye, Milo. All right, guys. Gonna lock out of our OBS.
너가 뭐라고 하든 난 그냥 할 거야. 내가 하고자 하는 거 그냥 할 거야. 내가 하고 싶으니까 그냥